Parasocial with Don Benitez. 1 second, please. 1 second, please. Song says, yo, Donny boy. Hello, Song. Ramon super chats. Yo, I've just started watching your Steams. As a black man, I appreciate that you don't tolerate racism. What the difference between a pizza and me? A pizza can feed a family of 4. Oh, I think that might have been a racist joke, so if that's the case, then I condemn that. Tog says hi. Hello, Tog. Again, I condemn racism. Emmett says, Don, it's me, buddy boy. Hello, Emmett. Abodi says, rate my profile picture. Oh, that's cool looking. I give it a 5. Thank you, Ronan, for the Chuck E. Cheese coin. Tog says, job. Okay. Virtue says, you want kids? I want 1. Michael says, hi Don, I'm back. Hello, Michael Klein. Copper says, Ramon be glazing your streams. Yeah. With super chats, I guess. Michael says, yeah, hello. Spider says, funk yeah, alright. Cyrus Milne, super chats, cheese. Cheese, I ate that today. Thank you, Cyrus. Timer extended. Ashton says, how are you? I'm good. Kerr says, I'm never this early. Yeah. I saw you talking before the stream started. Laurel says, been missing you, Don. Hello, Laurel. RM says, when are you moving to Somalia? Never. Ollie says, Don, what is it? Serial says, hi, can you rate my profile picture, please? 2. Lorenu says, hey, Don. Hello, Lorenu. Ale says, hi, Don, how's your day been so far? It's been decent. Spider says, dude, you sound tired. I think I always sound this way. Emmett says, this time I'm gonna stay all stream Donny bud. I doubt it. Thank you, Frog Hunter, for the high five thing. Thank you. Xanda says the money's gone to your head. Maybe, but not entirely. Virtue says, are you gay? No. The Quacky says, Don, laugh for no reason. I've already done that before, so it's not fun anymore. Marcus says, you are a legend, Don. Thank you. Abom says, does your family know you do this? Yes. The Goat says, what happened to the stream raids you did before? Go to my channel and click posts, and you can find the raids we've done. Zanks says, hi. Hello, Zanks. FNAF says, FNAF. Alright. Lorenu says, are you lying already? No. Jace says, everyone, emergency announcement. Received this warning and are sharing it, so blah 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 blah. What's the warning? You just get to the point. Danger says red face emoji. Okay. Chicken says, do you remember me? No, I don't. No. No. Thank you again, Frog Hunter, for the high five. Zank says, my profile is my dead cat. I miss him. Oh, that's sad. Rest in peace, that cat. New Mexico super chats. Hey, Don. Do you own a Northrop B-2 Spirit Bomber? I'm guessing that's a plane. I don't own any planes. Thank you, New Mexico. Timer extended. Jace says, remember me? No, I don't. Arthur says, is Gabe Owner is a good name? No. It sounds like, gay boners. FNAF says, how do you not get bored? Random messages. Benzie says, what's up, Don? Hello, Benzie. Winter says, say hi to Grammy. No. Jetty says, I like the big chickens the most. It just fits much better because I can just slide it right in. No comment. Kerr says, bored. Yeah, I saw that spelling error as well. Zank says, his name is Whiskers. Rest in peace, Whiskers. RM says, would you buy a Somalian game called I Am the Captain Now? If I was impressed by the trailer. The Ill says, hey, you, yeah, you. Talking to me? What is it? NT says, rate me. No. Ya boy says, yo, hello, ya boy. Serial says, why 2? Because I don't like it. Jeremy says, hey, hello, Jeremy. Ashlyn says, are you a dog or a cat person? I'm a dog person. The Goat says, do you still do raids? Yeah. Dodo says, do you remember? Remember what? Joseph Barrera super chats, do you remember me? Do you remember me? Yeah, that's a frequent annoying question. Timer extended. AL says, daily reminder to pronounce my name right. Ale. Had to put that out. Ale. Okay. Maybe I can't promise. Sun says, who is your favorite YouTuber other than you? Salcy1. Ashlyn says, son, your voice makes me laugh. Okay. Phantom says, okay, so you can't see when I swear? No, I can see. FC says, bro, ain't no one remembering you guys. Yeah, I don't remember most people. Rat says, hello friend, hope you're doing well. I am, thank you. Danger says, can you rate my profile picture? I give it a 0.5. Joel says, just finished watching Eyes Wide Shut. Really makes you think about the... I don't know what that is. I'm guessing you have a... like... the elite Epstein Files interpretation like most people. That's not really my thing. Thank you, add-on, for the Chuck E. Cheese coin. Quality says, remember to drink water, streamer. Thank you. Zero says, hey, why are not answering? Because there's multiple people here. Emmett says, remember me? Yes. Renz says, twin, what's your favorite movie? Eyes Wide Shut. Anne says, how are you? I'm good. BD says, do you like Lord of the Rings? No. I don't. I haven't watched the movies in like 2 decades though, so... a little... That was an exaggeration. Yusuf says, what's the can? It's shaving cream. Ale says, if you remain persistent and be on actively, you will get remembered by the Great Dawn. Exactly. Cal says, hi. Hello, Cal. Joel says, how do you interpret it? Well... I'm more interested in the lust aspects and not... I don't know. I mean, it's kind of a personal thing. And Teddy says, are you gay? I am not gay. Demi says, do you remember Demi? No, I don't. Ivan says, are you gay? No. Kerr says, I am an example of persistent viewers, right? You are. Jack says, did you watch Breaking Bad? Yes, I did. Ollie says, do you get tired of getting the same question over and over again? A little bit. Ashlyn says, is the background an attempt to hypnotize your viewers? Yeah. Joel says, okay, Donnie. Yeah, I'm being serious. I might be coming off as pretentious, but I'm being genuine. Thumpy says, I'm a tickle your pickle. Okay. EJ says, do you play songs? No, I don't. Ashlyn says, I hope to get remembered by the Great Dawn one day. Okay. It's not hard, just chat a lot. FC says, if you read this, you get a super chat. Are you man of your word? Sandra says, what do you play? I don't play anything. Ivan says, you look like Damien from Brawl Stars. I don't care. Nen says, hi Don. Hello, Nen. Show says, I hope you take a shower one day. I'll do that tomorrow. Thumpy says, please let me crack now. Bro says, rank these from worst to best. Pepsi, Coke, Dr. Pepper. Coke 1, Dr. Pepper 2nd, Pepsi last. JX says, can we play Fortnite? No. Crazy says, can I get a shout out? No. Definitely not. Bolshevik says, do you rub it out? No comment. AF says, hello. Hello, AF. Ramon says, my homeboy came over yesterday while I was listening to your stream. He wants to pay you $500 per hour to come over to his house and just stand there, naked. He said no touch is okay. I don't want that. That seems degrading. MX says, yo, what's up? Hello, MX. Serial says, A. What? Max says, have you played Battle Cat since I asked you yesterday? No. I don't care that much about your recommendation. Goner says, hello. Hello, Goner. Josh says, can you feed me senpai? No. Roasted says, do you put Vaseline while gooning? No comment. Virtue says, gay, straight, or a little bit of everything. I'm straight. Cinder says, do you support furries? Yeah, but they're a little weird. Demi says, nice haircut, thank you. Maka says, lie please. A little bit later. AN says, do you remember me? Yes. I remember you in your AI slot profile picture. Colin says, any homosexual pornography? No. Thumpy says, why? Let me crack man now. Swift says, Don probably hates doing this, he just gets money. I get a little enjoyment in it. Emmett says, I loved Eyes Wide Shut. Okay, that's nice to hear. Thank you, Courtney Carroll, for the silly marshmallow hand thing. I build, says Don. What up, brother? Hello. Long-time viewer. It says, who the person by your computer? This is a Civil War soldier. Mom says, dude, smile, not right now. Ashlyn says, why hasn't Ramon super chatted about the hug? Yeah, he has. Actually, he hasn't. Never mind. He did super chat earlier, but it wasn't about the hug. Vint says, Jesus Christ loves you. Thank you. And thank you, Courtney, for the 6-7 abomination. 11 says, I hope you get some after stream. Okay. Ale says, time to drink water, mate. Not yet. Sot says, do you let it crust or something you wipe? No comment. Thank you, Chickens, for the preschool star, and Nax for the feces. Sasha says, smile for $1. No. Julia says, Don. Julia, hello. Sear says, do you remember me? No, I don't. Dean says, I remember you. Okay. Crazy says, give me shout out or you're gay. You can think I'm gay. Leo says, I love your live. Thank you. Trust says, rate my profile picture. I've seen that picture too much. Not real says, sent fake super chat. Okay. Thank you, Lincoln, for the artificial flower. Trust says, I already read that. Andrad says, hello, Don Benitez. Hello, Andrad. Roasted says, I'll give straight teeth. I'm not interested. Lagoat says, W streamer. Thank you. Real says, hi. Hello, Real. Ronaldo says, smile for $50. No, I don't care. Thank you, Jasper, for the Chuck E. Cheese coin. Natalie says, hey. Hello, Natalie. Sav says, hi. Hello, Sav. Levin says, do you want me to send you pornography on Discord? No, I do not want you to. Monkey says, I goon to you. Okay. Julia says, hey, he was only gay that one time. Okay. Meteor says, do you play Geometry Dash? I've played it before, not anymore. Immortal says, onion. Okay. Praz says, why are you doing that? Doing what? Jacob says, hi. Hello, Jacob. Arthur says, sent fake 1 quadrillion super chat. Okay. Friend says, do you remember me? No, I don't. The Real says, I found a Aeropostale 2000 sweater at the thrift store today. That sounds prestigious, but I don't know about it. Thank you, Nax, for the feces. Rebecca says, hi. Hello, Rebecca. Elite says, hi. Hello, Elite. M says, is life when life gets so light? Dude, can you phrase that better? Millet says, what's up? Hello, Millet. M says, hi. Hello, M. Teb says, any hobbies? I like video editing and doom scrolling. Ale says, if I had the ability to donate 82 cents, I would do it. Thank you. Sebastian says, rate my profile picture. Oh, a bus? That's kind of boring. I don't know. Thank you, Jay, for the 6-7 abomination. Sot says, I let it crust. Okay. Sport. 1 second, please. Sport says, do you like pizza? I do. Never says, how much wood would a woodchuck... Dude, I get that question a lot, and I don't know. Brindley says, nonsense. Okay. Sticks says, you like men? No, I don't. Kobe says, is water wet or wet is water? The former. Mub says, do you only read comments? Yes. Shrleep says, what's your opinion on femboys? I'm not in that world, so I can't... But, I mean, I'm tolerant. Emberlyn says, do you remember me? I do not. MC says, I have COVID. Oh, I'm sorry. Your local says, would you rather Fortnite or Minecraft? Julia says, I was there on April the 1st, 2020. Oh, yeah, you're referring to that? Yeah, I was gay that day. FaZe says, I'm gay. Okay. Pra says, what's your favorite football team? The Spain team. Leo says, do you like Fortnite? I do. Han says 68 or 69. 68. AM says, Julia says, I was there referring gay. What's your favorite team? I'm really not into sports, to be honest. Vin says favorite music. I like the album Ascension Sunrise. AMB says referring what's your favorite. I don't know what you're saying. Lucy says remember me Pookie. No, I don't. Kendall says are you Christian? No. Lorenu says did you extend timer? Yeah, whenever I get super chats I extend it. Balloon says you like pigeons. No. Tom says rate my profile picture. Oh, the emoji's kind of cringy. Andrad super chats. Check out Only Pens 1. Okay. I'll search that up. Only Pens 1. Nothing popped up except for OnlyFans. So I guess you just made something up. Thumpy says, PI will violently backshot you. Okay. Thank you, Andrad. Is that some kind of joke? I don't think there's any pens in the camera shot. I don't know why you said that. Thank you, Andrad. Timer extended. Du Bois says hi. Hello, Du Bois. Frost says rate my profile picture. 0.1. Okay says, why do you always look like you're trying not to shoot yourself? I don't know. That's just the way I naturally look. Hyun says, rate my profile picture. 1. Bro says, I'm going on vacation tomorrow. Okay, I hope it's fun. Yash says, rate my profile picture. 4. Doctor says, rate my... 1. Carnival says, hi Don, I'm back. Hello, Carnival. CEO says, you were gay for a day. Yeah, on April Fools. That's gotta be appropriation of culture. No, I don't think it is. For real says rate my profile picture. 2. Andrad Super Chats, no joke, is my second account. Oh, that's your YouTube account name? Your alt? Okay, that's kind of a funny name. Stahl says, do you ever get bored of this? Yeah. Sebastian says, do you know what OCD is? Yeah. FC Super Chats, took me a minute. Sorry for the wait. Either way, have a good day, Don. Thank you, FC. By the way, the context of the Super Chat is that he said in a chat message, if you read this, I'll Super Chat. And he was a man of his word, so that's cool. Timer extended. 6 says rate my profile picture. That's a cute dog. I don't know what dog that is. The species, the kind. Ander says rate my profile picture. Oh, that's cool. J Bud says poo or pee. Pee. Arthur says when is the OF coming out? It's not coming out. Kat says the movie Obsession is overrated. Probably. Ramon Super Chats, it's Tuesday. Let's get silly. If you can't show the hog, can you at least show the outline? There aren't any YouTube rules against it. There aren't any, you're right, but there are rules against it in my mind. I don't want to do that. I think I don't want to get sexual. Wowie says, what are your ratings on the Argentina match in the World Cups? I don't care. Gigi says, rate my profile picture. I don't like it. Max says, I just nutted. Okay. Thank you, Ramon. Timer extended. Julian says, have you lost your V card? No comment. Thumpy says, bend over. No, I'm not going to do that. 1 second, please. Thank you, Jim Freak, for the high five. Serial says, Don, can you please call me N-word? No. Andrad Super Chats $1 Thank you, Andrad. Etch2 says, I hit 15,000 subscribers. Oh, that's cool. Mythical says TG7. Alright. The Finn says, what color is your... what color doorknob is your favorite? I don't understand that question. 1 second, please. I'm in the middle of doing something right now. 1 second. Okay. Lighting says, I'm goofy, okay. Tomika says, if you read this, I'll send a super chat. GIYU. I don't know what that means, but... Hemming says, hi, Pookie. Hello, Hemming. Thank you, Sharky Smile, for the disco ball abomination. Thank you. 6 says, rate my profile picture. 5. Joseph says, hi, can you give me money so I can buy jewels and gift to small YouTubers? No. Joe says, rate my profile picture. I don't really want to. I'm getting bored of that. Thank you, Sharky, for the second disco ball abomination. Roasted says, Doc, Cock, Pock, are you bored? No. Solid says, rate my profile picture. Oh, that's pretty cute, and the filter's interesting. The Love says, hi, it's my birthday. Happy birthday. Thank you, again, Sharky. That's your third disco ball. Irene says, I like poop. Okay. Jay says, hi. Hello, Jay. Carter says, could you rate me when you're done? You're looking at your profile picture. Your channel looks bad. 2L says, do you remember me? No, I don't. Kale says, am I gay? My guess is no. Rayan says, hello, you're goated if you read this. Thank you. And thank you, Ollie, for the disco ball abomination. And Jaden for the 6-7. Rage says, laughing disco. Yeah, that's the gift name. RM says, what is the Somalian? 1 + 1, it's 11. I think it's still 2 over there. FN says, hi. Hello, FN. Thumpy says, do it now before I goon on you. You're not going to do that. Wombat says, I did meant it, please. I don't know what you're saying. Zach says, rate my profile picture. Oh, cool monkey. British says, rate my profile picture. Cool plane. Cyrus Millie super chats. Everyone say, happy birthday, YouTuber. Go ahead, guys, if you want to. I already forgot. I don't know why you... Are you happy birthday to me? It's not my birthday. But maybe you're referring to someone else. Looking at the chat messages, I don't see anyone doing what you're saying, Cyrus. Nobody's listening to you, so... Oh, except for this guy. Okay. Rare says, search up Justin by Gordy. No, I don't want to. Thank you, Cyrus. Timer extended. The BM says, do you do tricks on it? No comment. Andrew says 2 + 2 is 22. No, it's not. Spade says whatever that is. Okay. Factory says, I finally hit 8 subscribers. Oh, that's cool. FA says, may you rate my profile picture? Oh, is that Call of Duty? ISO says, why do you consider yourself parasocial? No, it's more about the viewers being parasocial, not me. Lil says, do you ever think about the constant drift of time that is slowly pulling us towards inevitable death? Yeah, I think everyone does. The Fink says, what material doorknob is your favorite? Metal. Wow says, are you gonna raid today? I'm not sure. Hemming says, are you on Tinder? No comment. JV says, should I quit? Yes. Sub says, thoughts on gay people? I'm happy for them. Yusuf says, just appreciate the money, Don. Yeah, I appreciate your guys' money. Thank you again to Sharky for the 3 disco ball abominations he sent. Wow says, how many friends you have? I have no comment. Ollie says, day like 7 of asking Don to be my girlfriend. That's not happening. Turo says, will you play the new Call of Duty Modern Warfare 4? Probably not. Cheryl says, for real, Don Don. Okay. Max says, you're my favorite black girl. I'm not a black girl. Thank you, Matthias, for the 6-7 abomination. Jaxo says, don't know if you remember me. No, I don't. Ramon says, I know you give 0 fucks, but congrats on 30k. The jump from 20k was quick. Send Don money. Did you review my tax advice? A little bit, briefly. I am going to explore it more. Phil says, do you like men? I do not. Wombat says, do you play Siege? No. Corbin says, read my comment. I'm guessing you're thinking I did. I don't know what you're saying. Aaron says, Don Don. Okay. Arthur says, blah blah blah, racial slurs. I hate racial slurs. Okay. Roasted says, when did outline release? Never. Shape says, is it pink? No comment. Lorenu says, he hates us all. He doesn't even thank people who donate 500. I appreciate you guys. Jen says, people are something. Alright. Jamal says, where will LeBron sign? I don't know. Corbin says, do you remember me? No, I don't. Thumpy says, Don, show us the tip at least. No. That would get me banned. The A-Team says, what flavor of disco ball, orange, juice paint? I don't know what you're saying. Eclipse says, hello, how's your day? It's good. It's Yum says, you're probably annoyed from reading the comments, but as long as it's fun. As long as it's gets me money. I think that's what you meant to say. Thank you again, Matthias, for the 6-7, and Ollie for the disco ball abomination. Keep says, I like your background computer. Thank you. Rip says, do you miss Triple T? No, I don't. Toby says, do you like any sport? No. Levin says, day 36 of asking Don to recreate I Should Meet. Why would I do that? Bella says, hello, can you shout me out? No. Vin says, with everything aside, I genuinely hope Jesus blesses the rest of your day. Thank you. And thank you, Scarlett, for the preschool star. Martin says favorite person in stream. Well, I like Ramon because he gives me a lot of money. Marvel says love from Indonesia. Thank you. Yef says I have Israel. Alright. Toro says have your balls dropped. Yes. Legoat says drink some water. Okay. 1 second please as I drink some water. Thank you for your patience. Gabriel says pizza or burger. Burger. Thank you, Matthias, for the Chuck E. Cheese coin. Yefo says I hate Israel. No comment. Brady says so handsome. Thank you. Trifo says say tidal wave GD. There you go. Irene says I like men. That's cool. Spino says don't let me kiss your mom. No comment. Corbin says you like anime? No. Briss says rate my profile picture. It's just white. I think that's pretty boring. Mongol says hi. Hello, Mongol. Albus says how so is this a social experiment? How is it not one? It's Arden says how old are you? I am an adult. That's all I'll say. FV says raid me. Now, your kiddo says what's up. Hello, kiddo. Legoat says day 1 of asking Don to recreate Speedface. No, that's cringy. Hi says I'm a neat W. Okay. You're not employed. Arrow says does rate my profile picture get annoying or is it just oversent? It's oversent. Bruh says come. Alright. ZR says I'm trans. That's cool. That's cool. Natalie says hello. Hello, Natalie. Gray says your background is so cool. Thank you. AJ says free Palestine. No comment. Kale says did collaboration. I'm not doing that. Marie says rate my profile picture. Oh, that looks peaceful. Star says I'm gay. Okay. Starlight. Sarah says how are you? I'm good. Water says hi. Hello, Water. Definitely says my cat says hi. Hello, Definitely's cat. Big says what is the end goal? Money. Mister says want to touch tips? No, I don't. Stella says I'm bi. Okay. Sebastian says I dislike tricky. No comment. The GC says get a haircut soon. I can't promise that, but I probably should be doing that. Legoat says do you enjoy doing this? I do. Thank you, Cammy, for the 100s and the pepper. Ava says are you in college? I keep that private. Victor says blah blah blah, penises and anus. Okay. AX says what graphics card are you using? I'm using a GTX 1080. Sanja says hi. Hello, Sanja. Trip says I farted. Okay. Yafu says what country are you from? The USA. Slayer says sperm. Okay. Dottie says lame ass stream. Alright. Weston says do you remember me from yesterday? No, I don't. Jacob says I kindly ask all of you to turn away from LGBT. I don't want y'all to go to hell. No comment. Coconut says hi. Hello, Coconut. Miguel says, sends a good luck, have fun. Thank you, Miguel. Burner says, I don't know if this is weird, but sometimes when I watch a stream, I sleep. That's not weird. Hemming says, I'm making mashed sweet potatoes. Okay. Joanne says, let's get down to business and value. Value the fun. Brush those theories off now. Our mystery man. Open up. I'm not doing that. Triff says, what's your favorite video game? Minecraft. Anne says, do you ever plan on doing something else for my channel? Yes. Joe says, why do you think product placement isn't prominent in games? Because games are violent. Hi says, Taku something something is so peak, play it. I probably wouldn't enjoy it. Steven says something is a perfectly okay word to say. I don't think so. Thank you, Obama, for the let him cook cringy let him cook thing. Thank you. Obama shaved dick. Thank you. Uki says I goon to you. Alright. Based says Jesus is the way to the truth and the life. I don't think so. Gabe says, is my cat cute? Yeah, it is. RS says hot dog. Alright. Hello says hello. Hello. Pug says, your knuckles have reset, bro. You can crack them now. I don't like cracking my knuckles. RM says, I'm done with my PS5. Got any advice? Either wrap it with fireworks. You should send it to me. Dylan, thank you for the Chuck E. Cheese coin. LX says, what time is it for you? It is, in the PM. Max says, it's all over the screen right now. Okay. Ramon super chats, I've been camping with Ramon, he's ticklish. Are you trying to put words in my mouth? I haven't been camping with you. I don't know why you say that. Timer extended. Kale says I subbed. Thank you. Camden says, are you circumcised? No comment. Carr says, do you remember me? No. Pseudo says, what do you think is the best way to avoid corruption? All humans die. Jennifer says, what's your favorite video game? Minecraft. Lol says, why are you so nonchalant? I don't know. Thank you, Han, for the Chuck E. Cheese coin, and thank you again to Obama for the cringy let him cook thing. Hello says, so how's your day? Good. Phil says, can I fiddle your bum in a dark room? No. John says, you're P. Diddy? No, I'm not. Funny says, sent YouTube logo. That's not a gift, but this is a gift. Thank you, Vegan Slut, for the 6-7 abomination. ZR says, people hating on LGBT is stupid. It doesn't matter if they want to be the opposite gender. Well, they were going off the Bible, which is complicated. King says, rate my profile picture. 1. Milene says, I'm gay. Okay. Alex says, he knows why he's nonchalant. I do. It's just personality. Surfboard says, are you gonna lie again? Eventually, later in the stream. Early says, you play Last of Us? I do not. Thank you, Virtue Angel, for the 6-7 gift. Yusuf says, rate my profile picture, Donny Boy. Terrible, I hate it. Mr. Tomic says, are you forklift certified? No. Hi says, do you take Suncrest? Definitely not. Virtue says, have you ever smiled before? Many times. Surveg says, the first surge of feelings I felt in years is loneliness. Oh, that's sad. Thank you, Vegan Slut, for the plastic flower. Devil says, yesterday's raid was so peak, the guy got so much donations. Oh, that was cool. And I did see that is... Yeah, I thought it was cool too. Thank you, Ross Such Things, for the Unk Alert. Thank you. Carr says, John Pork is calling. I decline. Kevin says hi. Hello, Kevin. Microwave says, are you proud of me now? No. Raya says, rip my profile picture. His name is Rascal. Your profile picture is nothing. Max says, do you scratch your butt? No. Grady says hello. Hello, Grady. Thank you, Free Bands, for the flow state. Cute Capybara? Or is that a... That might be something else. I forgot what it's called. It starts with a G, doesn't it? Lude says, Jesus loves you. Thank you. Sea-Duck says, do you have a favorite football team? No, I don't. Oh, I think that's a groundhog. I don't know. I don't know what creature that is. Chief says, what is your best sport in your opinion? Basketball. Ronvin says, do you like Obama? No comment. Ale says, last time I asked for you to rate my profile picture, you gave it an 8. Opinion changed? I gave it an 8? No way. That doesn't make any sense. Yeah, I'd give it like a 3. Thank you, Free Bands, for the disco ball abomination. KC says, it is a capybara. Oh, okay. Alright. Capybara. Got it. Got it. Luke says he's the best of all time. Me? If you're saying that, thank you. MX says dance. No. Not doing that. Thank you, Graham, for the stupid turtle drinking water. I'll drink some water as well. 1 second, please. G says, fuck Hitler. I agree. Lewis says, hey. Hello, Lewis. Puggle says, rate my profile picture. 3. Formerly says shout out. How do I say this? Loose buttocks, loose anus. Toby says, can you ban me? No. ALA says, I'm not lying, I swear, Don. I can't believe it, that's crazy. Grizzle says, what's up? Hello, Grizzle. Levin says, showing it would get you banned. Whenever I change my profile picture to porn, it just blurs it in the posted live. Yeah. Ale says, I'm not lying. Yeah. The GC says, dude, you should get a mullet. No, I shouldn't. I Am Legend says, how much to have you twerk on stream? $1 trillion. CEO says, hey Don, are you proud of me? I changed my starter this morning on my RAV4. I'm so proud. No father needed. Oh, that's pretty cool. I'm proud of you. I wish I was that savvy. Thank you again to Graham for the turtle drinking water. Famously says, I love you. Thank you. Javi says hello. Hello, Javi. Joe says, are you putting on a character? Not intentionally. Jack says, favorite food? The cheeseburger. Fox says, hi Don. I'm sorry I've missed your streams. You don't remember me now. Yes I do. I remember you. Thank you, Cowboy, for the 21 preschool stars. Jacob says, you get buzz, not optional. It is optional. Surfboard says, I can fart in 3 languages. Oh, that's gross. Star says, show your dick now. The Only says, do you think social media is sustainable in the long run? What does that mean? Is it going to be here in 20 years? Yeah, it is. Kerr says, is it just me or does your stream freeze up time sometimes? I think it does that when I extend the timer. Lord says, hi, do you remember me? No. FN says, rate my profile picture. Absolutely terrible. William says, opinion on Baja Blast. It's good. Thank you again to Free Bands for the flow state. Thank you. David says, what's that behind your back? A fractal. Alfie says, rate my profile picture. Oh, it's Midget Kaisenat. That's interesting. Zru says, are you homophobic? No. Thank you, the Combo Havoc, for the disco ball abomination. Joanne says, Durana. Alright. Ghost says, it's my birthday today. Alright. Levin says, showing it wouldn't get you banned. Whenever I change my profile picture to porn, it just blurs it in the post live, so it would just be blurred. Okay. I didn't know that was a function. Syke says, rate my profile picture. 3. Thank you, Random Edits, for the disco ball abomination. Helldiver says, do you remember me? No, I don't. Ale says, I gotta go, Don. I'll probably be back before the stream ends. Okay, see ya, Ale. Serial says, soap emoji. Okay. T13 says, what's your favorite beach experience? I remember one of my least favorites is I stupidly went into the ocean with glasses on and I lost my glasses. Thank you, Luke Ingle, for the disco ball abomination. Aaron says, are you tired? I am not tired. Serial says, it's hand sanitizer. Yeah, okay. Soap, sanitizer, what's the difference? Just says, oh, he's smiling, he's jolly today. Yeah. Thank you, the Combo, for the disco ball, and Ross for the turtle drinking water. I'll drink some more water right now. 1 second, please. Kerr says, no, it just freezes when you pick on some comments. That's strange. Sanji says, did you watch FIFA? No. Levin says, can you nickname the cheapest gift to the Jew gift? No, that would be anti-Semitic. Thank you, Luke, for the marshmallow hand thing, and I see that Arthur Morgan profile. Marvel says, do you like Pepsi? Yes. Pickles says, do you like ice cream? Yeah. Noah says, have you ever went to a professional sports game? No. Thank you, Meme, for the disco ball, and Just for the other disco ball. 1,000-yard stare, Luigi. Taro says, I like fried chicken. Okay. Just like super chats. Well, actually, thank you, Just Like for the disco ball And 6-7 abominations. Thank you. Blue says, what type of music do you listen to? I don't listen to music. Surfboard says, Don is thirsty today. I am. Lude says, Coke or Pepsi? Coke. Syke says 3DS or 2DS? 3DS. The archive says, how many years will you do this experiment, you think? 2 years. Natalie says, do you play any video games? I don't. Sandra says, what is your favorite color? Gray. Joe says, do you think you take yourself too seriously? Yes. Thank you, Evie Roblox, for the marshmallow hand. Kylie says, what's your favorite game? I like Black Ops 2. Nick Levin says, can you grow a beard? Not a good one. G-Ball says, I like the background. Thank you. Levin says, should I pull my signature move? I mean, you can, but it'll make me dislike you more. Purple says, do you enjoy doing this? I do. Thank you, Just Us Row, for the disco ball. Thank you, Luigi. Asad says, what is your religion? I don't have one. Joanne says, I love your videos, thank you. Chick says, remember me? Yes. King says, I ate my dog, okay. Liam says, what's your favorite show? Breaking Bad. Dano says, can we play DBD together? I don't know what that is. Taco says, L boring. Okay. Belly says, Will Smith or Chris Rock? Chris Rock. Daddy says, do you want to see my wiener now? Jalak says, I think you need a break. I think you're wrong. Jacob says, do you prefer dogs or cats? I prefer dogs. Boston says, have you ever been to O-Block? No, I haven't. Kerr says, see you, Don. I'll be back in 40 minutes. See you in 40 minutes. Simba says, are you gay? No. Jewel says, hey, sending you health and greetings from the Netherlands. It's 3 a.m. Wow. Nicholas says, rate my PFL. I don't know what that is. Blast says, waffles or pancakes? Waffles. Thank you again, Ro/Luigi, for the disco ball. Ima says, do you have a tattoo? No. Adrian says, Messi or Ronaldo? Messi. Ronvin says, I did not shower today. You probably should. Well, I think it depends if you have been sweating a lot, actually. Defend says, I love you, Don Benitez. Thank you. Spine says, I eat my wiener. Not doing that. Defend says, I love you, Don Benitez. Thank you. Bryson says, are you gay or straight? I'm straight. Thank you, Blossom, for the flower. The archive says bachelors and masters. Sorry, I'm not gonna say. Burrito says, you like Minecraft? Yes. Michael says, Jesus loves you. Thank you. Joanne says, are you Sans Undertale? Is that a... I almost said, is that a font? But Undertale, that... I haven't played that game. Surfboard says, gotta go. Later, Don. See ya, Surfboard. Potato says, what hobbies besides streaming or editing do you have? Nothing. Raffle says, what's your favorite horror movie? The Shining. Andre says, don't listen to the hate, bro. You seem very honest and truthful. Thank you. And thank you, King, for the 6-7 abomination. The Co says, have you had a good day, bro? Yes. Bird says, I'm stink as fuck. Okay. Archie says, what's your favorite Minecraft blocker mob? My favorite by far is the skeleton. Yanzo says, is reading chat boring? No. The King says, can you pause the stream? I have to go use the bathroom now. You don't deserve that. Thank you, Boston, for the 6-7 gift. Justin says, are you trans? No. DeFrog says, do you like WWE? No. Riven says, suck my toes. Oh, I suck toes. You do? That's pretty weird. Defin says, how do you choose messages to read, Donnie? I basically just choose at random. Kale says, am I gay? I already answered that. Chick says, Don's age is 18. No comment. Kale says 67. Okay. Thank you, King, for the star gift. Bro says fart. No. FNAF says, do you like FNAF 1? No, I don't. Teo says, remember you? I do remember myself. Thank you, Rosies, for the stupid little turtle drinking water. Thank you. And 1 million for the Unklert. A Piper says, how long have you been live? I've been live for like an hour. Brooklyn says, do you know the band Tokyo Hotel? No, but I'm guessing that's them. Thank you again, Rosies. Hi. I'll wait to drink water. I'm not too thirsty. Good says, what's your favorite game? Minecraft. Doctor says, kiss me, Donnie, no. Thank you, 1 million, for your second Uncle Alert thing. Thank you. Stephanie says LeBron. Okay. Teo says, remember me? No. Y says chicken or cheese? Cheese. Amethyst says, I have a concussion. Oh, I'm sorry. Alice says, why is there a cow staring at me? They do that. They're curious creatures. Ramon super chats, bro, why did you stop riding your unicycle? Please pull it out of the garage and hop it on again. When you are done with it, please sell the seat to me. No, that's weird. I'm not gonna sell my underwear or my pants, or I'm not into that freaky stuff. Toasty says you look colorful. Okay. Well, my background is. Neon says, do you like cookies? I do. Samuel says, hello from North Korea. You're not from North Korea. Thank you, 1 million, for the Clock It gift. And thank you again, Ramon. Timer extended. Trek says, what's the worst movie / show you've watched? Godzilla vs. King Kong. Calvin says, do you like no cookies? I like cookies. Thank you, King, for the 6-7. S says, fake gift. Okay. William says, do you enjoy this? Yes. Darth says, do you hate furries? No, why would I hate them? They're weird, but I don't hate them. Thank you, FNAF, for the 6-7. Abomination. Eames says, whatever that is. Cameron says, remember me? No. Blah, blah, blah. Not you either? No. Thank you, Carter. Carter's super chats. Is your least favorite letter F? Yeah. Thank you, Carter. Timer extended. Harper says, do you have a kid? No, I don't. Rogelio says, I tore my ACL. Oh, sorry. Raffle super chats, donating just to be on stream for no reason again. Sounds good. You are now in history. Raffle, EA, the Halloween, you are now in history. You are now in part of my streams. Timer extended. Claire says, how do you choose comments? It's in the description. Bacon says, hey man, I'm back from yesterday. Hello, Bacon. Bray says, have a good day, stream. I will. Elijah says, blah, 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 blah. Penis is an anus. Okay. FNAF says, you hate FNAF now. The Holy says, Jesus loves you, my brother. Thank you. And thank you, Sidra, for the disco ball abomination. Silky says, Ed Sheeran. Alright. Arthur says, Jeff Bezos sent 4 million through Super Chat. I wish. Scarl says, you're not gonna take me for my gift. Okay. But I guess I'll take this guy for his gift. Whatever that means. Thank you, No Aviation, for the Uncle Alert. Is that like a remote plane in your profile picture? That's interesting. Luke says LeBron James. Okay. Brooklyn says you like Mountain Dew? Yes. Hi says there's a character from a game I love called Dawn. What's the game? DeFrog says, have you played Rainbow Six Siege? Yes. Vin says, you want to be in next Fast and Furious? No, I don't. Thank you again, Sidra Faisal, for the disco ball abomination. May says, who are you? I am a streamer. 1 second, please. I'm in the middle of doing something right now. FNAF says, nice headset, thank you. Laundry says, hello. Hello, Laundry. Boston says, rate my profile picture. Oh, that's nice. The sky in the background, that's a 4. Star says, gay. Okay. Hayden says, is water wet or nah? It is wet, yes. S says, yo, what gonna happen if I send $300? I'll say thank you, move on. Thank you, Aviation, for the 6-7 gift. DeFrog says, 1 second, please, I'm doing something. I'm doing something. 1 second, please. Why is my computer so laggy? Anyways, DeFrog says, who do you main in Rainbow Six Siege, attack and defense? Blitz and Clash. Jacob says, what is the most thing you've ever done? What does that even mean? Lisa says, hi, what's your name? Don. Renaissance says, tips for first time anal sex? No comment. Egg says, rate my profile picture. 1. Love says, do you like fish? Yes, I do. 90 says, hello. Hello, 90. Riza says, I'm still homeless. I hope your situation changes. Virtue says, are you Captain Groovy's father? I don't know who that is. Jules says, can you rate my profile picture, sir? Looks... Why does it have all this blank space around it? That doesn't make any sense. Michael says, who are we gonna raid? I don't know yet. Matteo says, sorry, I'm doing something right now. 1 second, please. 1 second, please. I'm busy. Shoot, it's not working. Ale says hoochie coochie. Okay. JV says, do you smoke a giant bong earlier? No. Super says, what are you like about yourself? I like that I have all my limbs. Thank you, Walsh, for the 6-7 gift. Toasty says, froggy dude. Okay. 1 second, please. 1 second, please. I'm busy. Why is this so... VZ says, are you okay? Yes, I'm just... Beth says, cats or dogs? Dogs. RM says, did you make Donald Trump... Did you know Donald Trump is moving to Somalia? No, he's not. Mister says, remember me? No, I don't. 1 second, please. Okay, there we go. I got that handled. The excavative says you that read wrong. I also read your username wrong. Stella says, rate my profile picture. 5. Johnny says, wave emoji. Hello, Johnny. William says, rate my profile picture. I prefer the original Jurassic Park logo. The Goat says, what do you think about Israel killing innocent kids in Gaza? No comment. Elite says, remember me? I do not remember you. Egg says, is my profile picture better than the last one? No. Elite says, remember me? Yes. RX says, did you watch World Cup? No, I didn't. Brav says, if you had one message to the world, what would it be? I don't know, dude. I would just stay silent. Robo says, where are the bitches at? Not here. Jackson says, football or soccer? Soccer. Thank you again to, Sidra for the Laughing Disco gift. Spy says, I told you will remember me, Spy. I don't remember you. YSO says, nonsense. Alright. Rex says, you sleepy? No. Andrea says, do you ever wear anything else? Not really. Crick says, you like Spain? It's one of the more interesting countries. Jaden says, do you like Masters of the Universe? I don't know what that is. Thank you, Jolina, for the Chuck E. Cheese coin, and Ethan for the 6-7 gift. Rogelio says, you look tired. I get that a lot, but I'm not. Stella says, what's your favorite sport? Video games. Mega Dave the Brave super chats hello. Hello, Dave. Is Dave one of the names in the Minions? I imagine so because of your profile picture. I don't remember that though. I don't. Is there a Minion named Dave? Probably, because why would he have that as a profile picture? Drook says, do you wash that polo? Yes, of course. Charlie says, hola. Hello, Charlie. Brant says, how old are you? I'm an adult. Thank you, Dave. Timer extended. Matteo says, nah, bro avoided reading my message. No, I didn't. Bro says, hi. Hello, bro. Sammy says, money emoji. Speaking of that, 1 million super chats. Go to Streamer University. You'd get the baddies. I don't like Streamer University. I don't really like streamers. I don't really like my own stream. Thank you, 1 million. Timer extended. Lily says hello. Hello, Lily. Eggy says, dog profile picture. I see it, that's cute. Lupita says, do you know TAD? I don't know what that is. Weston says, chopped. Okay. Colson says, hi, hello, Colson. Nightbot super chats. When do we get the results from the experiment? You're getting it now. Nightbot says, Mr. Super Chat. Yeah, I know. I'm sorry I was late to your super chat. I apologize. Anyways, I mean, the result is the stream itself. Like, this is the result, you know. Archie says favorite food, the cheeseburger. It just says gay poopy. Alright. Soul says, have you heard of Blox Fruits in Roblox? I haven't. Sizian says hi. Hello, Sizian. Dow says, what do you make doing this? Like $30 an hour. Intrusive says favorite COD zombies. I like the map. Die, rise. Stick says you gay? No. Ramon says, look at how much your revenue has increased since adding gifts. Now, think about how much you're missing in membership revenue. Come on, Don. You could do a standing stream for member. Not member only streams. That's not a popular thing. That's what people will buy members for is the green name. They want their name to be green, you know. Kai says, guess my dad's name. I don't want to. Hi says, do you like computer viruses? No. Mega Dave the Brave super chats hello. Hello again. This time you're saying hello with more money attached to it. Hello? Hello. Hello, but in a richer accent. Thank you, Mega. Timer extended. Dominator says, I got a dog. Okay. Life says hello. Yeah. Stick says, yes you do. I do what? Hunter says, hi, hope you're having a great day. Thank you. 1 million super chats. I already signed you up for SU 2027 school year. That's located in Europe. I'm not going to Europe. Mister says HU. I'm good. Rabbit says, what religion are you? I'm nothing. Spy says, do you ever lie through answers? Yes. Hi says, this is Kazan territory. I don't care. Person says, remember when I kept saying that you smelt like shit? No, I don't. Nightbot super chats. When was the experiment conducted then? It's being conducted right now. Legoat says, Don finally isn't putting his hand on his head. Yeah, not anymore. Queenie says, I have a body pillow of you. No, you don't. Jackson says, what's your favorite game? Minecraft. The Exquisitive says, Die Rise is underrated. Okay. George, yeah, it is. It is underrated. George says, Butterball Kring Jr. Alright. Virtue says, do you want me, Daddy? I do not. E-Bike says, do you goon? No comment. Amir says, hope you have a good day. You too, Amir. Matteo says, I have dried semen on my tip. You should clean that up. GT says, lie for 2 minutes straight. I'll do that soon. I want to do that. Lil says, hi Don, how are you? I am good. George says, are you trans? No. Devin says, hello. Hello, Devin. Nightbot super chats, how can this be the experiment and result? I mean, the result is like, the result is like the whole of the stream. I don't know how to explain it. Like, I mean, I'm using a very loose definition of social experiment. I get why you're confused. Maybe I should change my about me. Uzi says hi. Hello, Uzi. Monica says God loves you. Thank you. DK says hey. Hello, DK. Thank you, Random, for the flow state. Tater says guess what? Chicken butt? Thank you, Nightbot. Timer extended. It's Cotton says for real. For real, what? Patrick says, what are your political? I don't get into that. Food, super chats, Verity is crackable. Okay. I don't know. That smiley face is crackable. That I don't understand that. Yeah. Justin says, can you shout out my channel? No. Razor says, can I goon to you? Yeah, you can. Stick says, sorry, 1 second, please. I'm doing something. 1 second. I'm busy. I'm busy. Okay, I'm back. Parker says hello. Hello, Parker. Bug says, my nephew goons triple T. Okay. Cooper says, I'm gooning right now. Enjoy yourself. Jim says, remember me? No, I don't. Huss says, Dawn. Okay. It says you're gay. No, I'm not. Darian says, Messi or Ronaldo? I prefer Messi. 1 second, please. I gotta do something. I'm typing something into my keyboard. Okay, I'm back. Stick says, wanna do it? Do what? Devin says, what do you think of brain rot? I think it's addicting. Fortnite says, hi. Hello, Fortnite. Blend says, South Park or Rick and Morty? South Park. Joshua says, steak. Okay. Alright. Ryder says, I'm gooning. Okay. Dig says, what was your proudest moment? I don't have a proudest moment. Jim says, rate my profile picture. It's unsettling. KH says, 1 second, please. 1 second, please. Oh man. My computer is pretty slow. Anyways, Win says, are you Diddy Blood? I am not. Jaden says, Masters of the Universe is Hemin. I still don't know what you're saying. Isaiah says, do you support LGBTQ? Yes, I do. Thank you, Random Edits, for the flow state. Saint Johnito Super Chats, I saw you on Grindr. It must have been a lookalike. I've never signed up for Grindr. Blaze says, yo, hello, Blaze. Everly says, rate my profile picture. I don't like rating profile pictures when people are in them. Makes me uncomfortable. Nikolai says, is this your main job? I don't talk about my job. Thank you, Justin, for the stupid little turtle drinking water. I'll take a quick sip. Thank you, Justin, with the Dr. Pepper profile picture. Virtue says, I know you want me. Okay. Abigail says, yo, hello, Abigail. Jolena says, has the pig with the cigarette in his mouth here? He has not been here, surprisingly. Dev says, H2O time. I just did that. Mir says, hi. Hello, Mir. Tharian says, hi. Hello, Tharian. 02 says, say wallahi. There you go. Ryder says, I've cracked Epstein 1 time. Okay, alright. Harper says, do you like my profile picture? Yeah, it's a cute dog. Jetta says, can it be another raid today? Probably. Thank you, Aquale Axolot, for the disco ball abomination. And Justin for the 6-7. Rye says, I fart, it tickled. Okay. Solf says, I like turtles. Me too. X says, I hope you had a good day. Thank you. Dana says, May. Alright. Amin says, are you a guy? I am a guy. HR says, yo. Hello, HR. Eli says, hi. Hello, Eli. Yanzo says, do you like Muslims? Yes. Thank you, Justin, for the high 5. 34 says, do you remember me? No, I don't. Glue says, rate my profile picture. 1. Chris says, what's up, baddie? Hello, Chris. Mister says, love you. Thanks. Wyatt says, go Trump. Okay. Stranger says, what's a raid? It's when we all go to a small streamer stream and surprise them. V1 says, do you like dicks? I don't. The archive says, sorry, I'm busy doing something. Huh. This is strange. 1 second, please. Okay, I'm back. Italian says, why is the sky green? It shouldn't be green. X says, I hope you have a good day. You too. 403 says, 1 second, please. Okay. 1 second, please. Alright, there we go. Bot says, I've never been selected to have my sheet read, though. There you go. Razor says, it's all over the screen. Okay. H says, you play games? Not anymore. Fandom says, meow, morp, geep. Alright. Nightbot super chats, your concentrating face is funny. Alright. Zrag says, I'm a monkey. Okay. Devin says, what's your favorite food? The cheeseburger. Margaret says, hi. Hello, Margaret. LeBron says, Anakin or Luke. Luke. Bay says, how long is your did daddy? I don't talk about my length. Milton says, Dr. Pepper or Pepsi? Dr. Pepper. Bella says, God bless you. Thank you. Matteo says, earlier I said you didn't use my visualizer. I sent you and you said 1 second please and turned to the side and never read it. I don't know what any of that means except for the fact I do remember your Discord message. That link. Car says, remember me? No, I don't. Thank you, Shevkev, for the flow state, and that is a interesting profile picture. Cherry says, do you watch Little Circus? Hell no. Full says, do you like my profile picture? No. It says, a grown man, by the way. That's right. Jersey says, hey, Donnie boy, you remember me? Yes. Progress says, you're the best, bro. Thank you, Progress. Airplane says, water break. No. Blaze says, do you like dogs? Yes. Nav says, what is the background? It's fractal. It's in the description. Rusty says, can I rape you in the asshole? No, you can't. Bay says, can you say hi, Mommy Sophia, and hi, Daddy Tori? Well, I guess I did it reading your message. 1 second, please. I'll be right back. I'm gonna go do something. I'll be back in 1 minute, 2 minutes. '80s is posture check. Oh yeah, I need that. Weird says drink water. Not right now. 6 says daddy back. That's right. Lil says, do you work out? No, I don't. Thank you, Frosty, for the Uncle Alert. Did you send that when I was in the restroom? If that's the case, then that's crazy. And yeah, I went to go splash some water on my face. I'm Juju says hi, hello Juju. Jabroni says ballsack, okay. Water says, do you like planes? I do. Yes, they're useful. Thank you, Phoenix, for the Uncle Alert. And Bob for the Uncle Alert. Stick says, touch my ballsack, daddy, no. Jersey says, hey Donnie boy, hello Jersey. Nonchalant says hi, hello Nonchalant. Bug says, what do you think of Arby's? I think they have too much meat in their sandwiches. Bay says, I love you daddy. Thank you. David says hi, hello David. Glitch says, you sound like H1T1. Oh, that sucks. Cake says, show your headphone dent. No. Thank you, Pancake King, for the flow state. Glitch, I already read that. Bryant says, is my profile picture good? It is, not good. Nav says, blah 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 parasocial. What? Nathan says, do you like my profile picture? Weirdly, I do. Thank you, Raise VR Official, for the Uncle Alert. DH says hello. Hello, DH. Andre says, who's your favorite corn star? I don't have one. Samuel says, whatever that is. Okay. Queenie says, I'm 100 feet away and rapidly approaching. No, you're not. Thank you, Void, for the marshmallow hand. Ranch says, suck me off, daddy. No. Sylvia says, hi, hello. Sylvia. Wyatt says, I like dicks. Alright. Vivid says, what's your favorite band? I like Radiohead. Thank you, Chippy, Game 1, and Pancake King First for the flow states. Two Uncle Alerts. What? I'm getting lost. There's just too many gifts. Thank you, guys. Justin says, what is your favorite soda? Not that. I like Coke more. No Cat says, why are people being so weird? Because I let them. Gray says, do you remember me? No, I don't. STL says, hi, Don. Remember me? Nope. Don't remember you. Harper says, thanks. My dog's name is Luna. Alright. Gray says, do you remember me? No. Miffy says, hi. Hello, Miffy. Matteo says, I like Radiohead as well. But do you like Audio Slave? I haven't given them a listen. Thank you again, Chippy, for the Uncle Alert, and Pancake for the flow state. Darian says, I wonder what his other hand you're doing. Can't you see both of my hands right now? Brian says, remember me? Remember me? I don't remember you. Anastasia says, hi. Hello, Anastasia. Nacho says, you're a bum. Alright. Adam says, hi. Hello, Adam. Thank you, Becky, for the flow state. Amari says, daddy, chill. What even is that? I'm making an announcement right now. The timer is now locked. Super chats and gifts no longer increase the timer. Anastasia says, hi. Hello, Anastasia. Lunex super chats. IH, yo, penis. What about my penis? Thank you, Funny Roach for this turtle drinking water. I'm not gonna do that. I'm hydrated, dude. And thank you, Azalea, for the goat trophy. Omari says, alright. Joshua says, hi. Hello, Joshua. Bug says, I just threw slime at my nephew. Okay. Nicholas says, men. Alright. John says, my pecker has a hole in it. Me too. Isaiah says, hi. Hello, Isaiah. Razor says, wanna goon my butt? No, thank you. YK says, suck my... I don't know. Okay. Thank you, Jersey Mike, for the flow state. Antonio says, I'm gay. Alright. Weird says, ha 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 ha. Alright. Diamond says, hi. Hello, Diamond. Brandon says, thumbs up emoji. Thank you. Fandom says, I'm an artist and my profile picture is my art. Oh, that's cool that you make your own art. I like that. Melanie says, I love your balls. Alright. Slop says, what's your favorite fast food? My favorite slop is, the Big Mac. Percy super chats, how hasn't your brain exploded from this every day? What I'm doing isn't too different from what you do. Scrolling shorts, they're both brain rot, you know. Quartz says, hi. Hello, Quartz. Diz says, you need a what? Alzi says, what are you on? H2O. Captain says, what is my profile picture good? No, it's not. Beltran says, hi. Hello, Beltran. Anastasia says, what's your music taste like? Empty. Hello says, you're my bae. Okay, that's cool. Thank you, but you're not my bae. 1 second, please. Okay, I'm back. Biking says, hi. Hello, Biking. Luden says, do you remember me? I don't. Stick says, I have cams in your shower. No, you don't. 72 says, rate my profile picture. 3. Matt says, are you hungry? No. Santiago says, WWE. Alright. Just says, remember me? Yes. Evan says, how long is your little rocket? My penis is none of your business. Eli says, do you have a girlfriend? I keep that private. Bay says, I masturbate to your face, daddy. Enjoy yourself. Melanie says, if a person is a mammal a person? No, that's bad logic. David says, hi. Hello, David. With an AI slot profile picture. Arthur says, hi. Hello, Arthur. Samson says, I love you. Thank you. Mr. Banana says, love your videos. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Cook says help with what? Taco says hi. Hello, Taco. Raven says supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Blah, blah, blah. Can you read me? If you do, you wasted your time. No, I didn't. David says, bruh, fine. I'll delete my profile picture. Good. Random says, yo. Hello, Random. FG says, hey. Hello, FG. Thank you again, Azalea, for the GOAT trophy. I appreciate it, Azalea. Moon says, love you. Thank you. No Signal says, fuck generative AI. Yeah, for the most part, I think it's annoying to look at. Logan says, someone is sucking my dick. Okay. Joey says, hello. Hello, Joey. Noah says, do you remember me? No, I don't. 34 says, my pussy is wet for you, daddy. Alright. Thank you, Mystery, for the Uncle Alert, and Mallory for the stupid turtle drinking water. Rin says, have you ever gooned? No comment. Goofy says, rate my profile picture. Terrible. The Gaming says, what's your favorite game? I don't know, dude. I don't know. I'll take a swig of water in honor of this turtle drinking water. Tara says, remember me? It's Caesar23. No, I don't. Goofy says, shut the fuck up. No. Bryant says, like my profile picture. Crocs and dogs. That's nice. Thank you, Yuri, for the eagle. And Jersey Mike for the flow state. When I saw the GIF pop up, I thought it was Jacqueline. Like that frequent chatter of mine because of your profile picture, but it's not Jacqueline, it's Jersey Mike. Pickle says dog cat, okay. Cemetery says, can you rate my profile picture? Oh, that's kind of cool. Superior says, yo, hello, Superior. Kitty says, I got a dog. Me too. Thank you, Jersey, for the Uncle Alert. Mass says, hi, hello. Mass. JW says, a black child in the trash compactor. I condemn your chat message. J Kizzy says, thoughts on Israel? Am I anti-Semitic? No. I already read that. Matteo says, by the way, I sent like 4 Chuck E. Cheese coins. Thank you. And thank you, Absolute Maniac. Absolute says, bro, you look like you are going through a hard time. God loves you, bro. Everything's gonna be okay. Everything's not gonna be okay. But that's... I can deal with it. Thank you, Absolute. Timer... Actually, the timer's locked. Jersey says, Donnie, I love you, man. Thank you. Jessica says, are you depressed? No. Austin says, hello. Hello, Austin. Oliver says, what's your favorite game weapon of all time? I like the Remington from Black Ops 2. Duck says, you're cool. Your grammar's bad. Thank you, the real GDS, for the disco ball abomination. Easton says, who's under the table? Air. Diz says, I need a PC. Okay. Citrus says, what was the biggest dono you ever received? 500 American dollars. Danny says, God bless. Thank you, Danny. And Samson for the marshmallow. Jersey says, Donnie, do you love me? No, I don't. Virtue says, have my kids. I'm not interested. I don't know you. Nate says, someone named Air is under his table. No humans. Thank you, the real, for the stupid little watermelon slice. Thank you. Ugh. Omari says, whatever that is. Frosty says, I'm gooning right now. Alright. Porma2 says, dog named Air. I was wondering if someone is going to do that, but I'm not into bestiality. A says, hello, hello, A. Leo says, how's your mom? No comment. Noah says, rate my profile picture. 4. Cliff says, can we do a raid? Yes. Just says, my racial slur. Okay. Richard says, are you homophobic? Nope. KZ says, gang, who is this? I'm a YouTuber. Philip says, how are you? I'm good. Hippa says, are you afraid of lesbians? No. Cheeto says, rate my profile picture, please. Well, the colors are take me aback. Like, it's startling. I don't know if that's good or bad. Lee says, do you wipe or do you let it crust? No comment. Solar says, why you look so angry? I don't know, dude. Crystal says, say dear, basketball. There you go. Pi says, do you watch homosexual pornography? No. Hugo says, remember me? I don't. Thank you, Jersey Mike, for the stupid little laughing disco thing. Hey says, rate my dog profile picture. 1. I can't tell says, how old are you? I am above 17. RY says, are you wearing socks? Yes. Cheeto says, fart. No. Cemetery says, I'm hungry. Should I get a snack or go to bed? You should get a snack. DH says, why don't you still go to Chuck E. Cheese? Because I'm not a child. Lil Big says, do you think your generation growing up in some of the most profoundly disastrous times in recent history? No. No, I don't think so. Name says, say my name. Heisenberg. Melanie says, future me. Okay. RY says, I've come to you before. Alright. Richard says, are you straight? Yes. Unlike that one guy that said he's come to me. That one says, who's in Paris? I can't say. Thank you again, Jersey Mike, for the disco ball. Jacob says, is it raining where you are? I'm going to keep that private. Classy says, Don Benitez thinks he matters. I do think I do. Ellie says, cat is named Air. No, there's no creatures there. A says, wave emoji. Hello. Virtue says, my legs are spread. I'm not entering. C says, do you like dogs? Yes. Coco says, what's your thoughts on chicken noodle soup? I haven't tried it. Minnie says, rate my cat. Cute cat. Thank you, Jersey, for the plastic flower, and Zoe for the BP for the preschool stars. Easton says, don't put bananas in my butt. Sounds like a plan. Tree says, can you squish? Squish what? Patricia says, do you get tired of doing this? Yes. Cowboy says, if there are 35 fish driving, how many cats eat dogs? Insufficient information. A says hi. Hello, A. Blooper says hi. Hello, Blooper. Mixter says, go to a eye doctor. I'm fine, dude. Lee says, I'm name's Air. Funny. Thank you, Iron, for the preschool stars. Thank you. Bubba says hi. Hello, Bubba. Grant says, RJ. I don't know what you're saying. Oh, yeah, says, do you like dicks now? No. Eli says, this chat is weird. Okay. Your little says poo. Alright. Jersey says, Donnie, I am with your girl again. No, you're not. Arthur says, 4 fries and 2 big guys. Alright. Thank you, Vorks YT, for the flow state. I see the Omega skin from Fortnite. Cheeto says, take a break. I don't need a break. Neymar says, hello. My name is Neymar. Like the soccer player. Have a good day. You too, Neymar. KZ says, why did he say my name wrong? Cassie. There you go. Zoe says, I hope your day is going good. It is. Cowboy says, that's me. This is you. The Poke says, hello. Hello, the Poke. Thank you again, Vorks. Vorks YT for the flow state. Aaron says, can you listen to Trap Royalty? I don't want to. 1 second, please. Okay, there we go. Andrea says, what kind of fucking videos do you like to fucking watch on motherfucking YouTube? I've been watching My House is Dirty. Ellis says, do you know Cat's Eye? No. James says, is it water time yet? Not yet. Just says 1. Okay. Justin says, I want waffle fries. Waffle fries are bad now. Oh yeah, says Breast Text Art. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Arthur says, do you like to eat poop? I do not. Elias says, who is your favorite soccer player? Messi. Loco says, do you like my profile picture? I made it on Desmos. Yeah, is that a Pokemon character? Baby says, do you like Mexico? No. Alfie says, Don getting pulled under by someone. No, I was just making space for the breasts. Luigi says, "Are you gay?" No. M Rap says, "Israel does not approve." Okay. Justin says, "What's your type in woman?" Shorter than me. Master says, "Aren't you Hispanic?" That's correct. Eli says, "That respect." Okay. Andre says, "How do you feel about getting offered free puh?" I think it's a scam, and I'm not interested anyways. A says, "Do you remember me, Don?" No. Luigi says, "Do you like Mario?" I do. Dave M says, "Bro, hi." Arthur says, "You're looking great today, Donnie. Thank you." And thank you again to Vrox YT and Mallory for the gifts. Steph says H. Okay. Apollo says 500k or dinner with Jay-Z. 500k. Boiled says, "So who gonna buy me that Fortnite battle pass?" Not me. Thank you, Charboy Edits, for the flow state. David says, "Question mark? What's your question?" Eli says, "What, me to leave?" Do whatever you want, dude. Quinn says, "Hi." Hello, Quinn. Silo says, 2 to 3 years, Dagestan. What? Thank you, Minecraft Me 9, for the disco ball. Minecraft Me. Frosty says, "How many bananas can you choke on?" I'm not doing any of that, dude. Elliot says, "Type 1 if you are a dirt bike rider." I'm not typing 1. Minecraft Me says hello. Hello. And thank you again for your disco ball. David says question mark again. Okay. Tiffany says, "I impregnated 50 horses this year. I condemn you." Puma says Puma. Alright. Stetson says 1. You like dirt bikes? Okay. Wow, lots of people like dirt bikes. That's pretty unusual. Philip, thank you for the disco ball. Philip Patello. Aaron says, "Can you listen to Trap Royalty?" I could, but I don't want to. Cheeto says, "The food from the kitchen." What? Uzi says, "Can you rate my profile picture, please?" It's terrible. Ellis says, "Donnie Banana, have you ever shit in someone's mouth?" No. HW says, "What's your favorite game?" Minecraft. KC says, "Gracias." You're welcome. I don't know why I'm having trouble saying Casey. Caden says, "Mod, please mod." Definitely not. Mod says, "When do you stop streaming?" When the timer ends. Puma says, "Bro, rate my profile picture." 3. Taylor says burger. That's me, often. Sausage says hi. Hello, Sausage. Thank you again, Philip Patello, for the disco ball abomination. I Love says, "He doesn't have a girlfriend. He does this for a living. He doesn't go outside." Okay. Cam says, "Favorite Minecraft mob?" The skeleton. Luke says, "What would you prefer, dogs or cats?" The former. Thank you, Minecraft Me, for your second disco ball. Hockey says, "Do you like hockey?" No, I don't. Ellis says, "Donnie Banan." Alright. Tammy says, "I'm gay." Alright. Dave M says, "Sent fake disco ball." Alright, okay. Karma says, "Rate mine." It's a little too close up. Atlas says, "Can dogs lose their voices?" Probably. Thank you, Jersey, for the flow state. Puma says, "You're single." Okay. Frosty says, "So you're pro?" You did the joke wrong. I never said 0, so. Cleaner says, "How long have you been streaming for?" An hour and a half. Elliot says, "Let the dirt bike riders rate my profile picture." Go ahead, guys. Aaron says, "Want to know the best comeback to your gay?" Sure. Puma says, "Bro never slept in 2 hours." Yeah. Hockey says, "Why do you not like hockey?" I just never got into it. Tab says 3. Alright. Darian says, "What's your favorite country?" The United States. Ellen says, "Poi yo yo." Okay. Luke says, "Do you have a headache?" No. Thank you again to Jersey and Minecraft for the gifts. Andre says, "Crazy how you read multiple of my comments, and you still haven't pronounced my name right. It's pronounced Andreas." Andreas. Lermer says, "Rate my profile picture." 4. Pedro says Pornhub. Alright. What says, can you say Kosovo is the best? I don't even know what country that's in. Is that Ukraine? Front says, can I get a please burger cheese? No. Bay says, me and Tori are dating, and she dominates me in bed. Alright. Eli says, is this chat weird, Don? It's unusual compared to other chats. Thank you, Jersey, for the moldy Sunday. Moonlight says, are you tired of doing this? No. RB says, I'm not getting noticed. Sorry about that, but now you have been. Lumi says, parasocial or parachute? Parasocial. Kerr says, Don Ut. I'm back. Do you like that name? Donut? Donut? No, I don't. Tree says, rate my profile picture. 0.5. War says, Kosovo is a country. No way. Hair says, rate my profile picture. 1. Oil says, Kosovo is a country. Okay. I guess it is. Not a famous one, because I don't know it. Meadow says, who rating? I don't know yet. Julia says, emojis. Okay. Pi says, what's your favorite book? I like Watership Down. I like Wisdom of Life by Schopenhauer. I says, why do you only do streams? Because that's just the way I do it. I don't know. Cleaner says, what state are you in? That's private. Chris says, are you okay? Yes. Calling says, how do you feel about yaoi? Anime, pornography, I'm not a fan. Farming says, name all the amazing digital circus characters. I don't watch that show. The One says, do you like gorillas? I don't. Well, I mean, I wouldn't class myself as a fan. Dawson says, you remember me? No. Luke says, what does parasocial? Search it up. 99 says, I'm a furry, woof woof woof. Okay. Fibble says, smile. I don't want to. Sin says, do you ever think about going streamer university? No, those streamers are different from me. Like, we have different styles. I wouldn't fit there. Swag says, are you gay? I am not gay. Oak says, hi. Hello, Oaks. Park says, hello. Hello, Park. Nih says, is there anything you'd like to share? No. AJ says, call me whatever you want, just don't call me late for dinner. Okay. Hey says, Kosovo is the name of the person under the table. No, it's not. Zoe says, did you play sports? No, I didn't. I'm LARP says, shut the fuck up, dork. No. Alex says, do you like femboys? Sexually, no. Avery says, rate my profile picture. 1. Camman says, do you like the Minecraft warden? No, it looks silly. Pinky says, Stan, NJZ, or you love Israel? I love Israel. Brawler says, there are dying kids and you are laughing. Okay. Tassie says, hi, I'm new. Hello, Tassie. Liliana says, what favorite color? Gray. Hockey says, am subscribed. Thank you. Bay says, Stan, S-Bay, and stream their new song. I'm not doing that. Family says, do you remember me? No, I don't. Thank you again, Jersey, for the gifts. And Minecraft. Chatboy Edits for the gifts. Blue says, what's up, bro? Hello, Blue. Lika says, wait, rate my profile picture. It's a little too busy, I would say. Melanie says, do you have a headache? No. Gojo says, you're gay. No, I'm not. Jasper says, do you like my profile picture? Yes, I do. A monkey with glasses. Bryce says, hi. Hello, Bryce. Ryder says, hello, 67. Okay. Mason says, what's in the background? It's in the description. Uzi says, I spent 3 hours making my profile picture. I mean, that's cool that it's original, but I don't like it. It just looks corny. Void says, are you sleep deprived? I'm not. Simpa says, do you like my profile picture? Yes, it looks like meat canning or something. Christy says, hi. Hello, Christy. Justin says, rate my chinchilla. I can barely see it. Frosty says, I'm sorry, Big Don. It's okay. Teresa says, yo. Hello, Teresa. Skylar says, what is your favorite sport? I don't care about sports. Clean says, tongue to her. Alright. Pinky says, you look like a femboy. I guess so. Mason says, you're the goat. Thank you. Hayes says, bro, how can you like Israel? No comment. Leah says, sup. Hello, Leah. Aiden says, do you like my profile picture pic? Looks like the Rizzler. Luna says, Jen. Okay. Dexo says, hand is glued to the head. Not anymore. 1 second, please. Not anymore. Coca-Cola says, well, actually, not anymore now. Starting now. Coca-Cola says, go next door and do what needs to be done. They won't laugh at you ever again. Shoot people? No. Park says, does this pay the bills? Some of it. Zell says, do you think Argentina rigged the World Cup? No. Egg says, I have a thong on and I'm a man. That's cool. Mr. Rant says, it's 124 degrees here. Wow. YP says, hi. Hello, YP. Mr. Saw says, is this pre-recorded? No. Camman says, I've watched all of your 162 streams. No, you haven't. PD says, rate my profile picture. 1. YP says, hi. Hello, YP. Radin says, do your parents know you goon? No comment. Boxy says, would you like Michael Jackson? I like Michael Jackson. Helldiver says, I like cocks. That's cool that you like cocks, Helldiver. Z says, rate my profile picture. 6. That's cute. Viking says something in Russian. Jay says, I saw you like 5 times this week. Okay. That random says, I have a large dick. Alright. Joe G super chats. Hey Don, how's your night? Tired of rating profile pictures? Lol. I'll post the def of parasocial in chat. Time to hydrate? The def of parasocial? I don't know what that means. But I'll take a look at it. Box says hello. Hello, Box. Bryce says, what's your favorite US state? I like New York. Random says 31. Okay. Colton says, do you listen to Slipknot? I do not. Santos says, what's your favorite Michael Jackson song? Don't stop till you get enough. Oka says, you are built like a distributor. Alright, whatever that means. Kerr says, see you, Don. Have a good night. See ya, Kerr. Viking says, rate the profile picture, my boy. Red Dead. 5. Valk says, amen. Okay. Jan says, who's your most favorite rapper? There's no reason to put the word most in there. Dinosaur says, do you like Did? No. Kyle says, rate please. 1. Dave M says, definition, bro. Oh, parasocial definition. Okay. Sounds good. Joe G. Chef says, rate my profile picture. 1. Ashlyn says, hey. Hello, Ashlyn. Bob says, rate my profile picture. 1. Sports says, what's up, how's it going? Hello, Sports. Camman says, second favorite game. Red Dead Redemption 1. Lee says, do you think the moon landing is real? Yes. Samson's rate, please. Very cute cat. AJ says, your raid target the other day asked if you might raid Slurm Loco if he is on. I don't take recommendations for raids. Raiding is a complicated thing. It's hard to explain, but it's something I have to do myself. Eli says, rate my profile picture. 0.5. Dennis says, hi. Hello, Dennis. LJ says, rate my profile picture. That's pretty cute. Astronaut cat. Raggedy Ant super chats. N1 SB. I don't know what that means. I do know what your profile picture is, though. It's Edward Scissorhands. Vivid says, rate my profile picture. 1. Lewis says, why are you gay so much? I'm not gay. Goober says, why are you so bland? Just the way I am. Joe G super chats. Def equals definition. Time for water yet? Yes, it is. 1 second, please. Violet says, have you watched The Walking Dead? Yes, that's Carl. Wild says, how long have you been live? For like an hour and a half. Yasmin says, do you watch porn? No comment. Casey says, second time He said my name wrong. Sorry. Liam says, do you like cats? Yes. Family says, do you remember when I said cats or dogs? No. I've been asked that 10,000 times. Mushroom says, rate my profile picture. Cute. Mr. Man says, hola. Hello, Mr. Man. Ratton says, can you clap cheeks? No comment. Z says, shut up, be nice, guys. Or don't. King Bob says, no one's gonna see this. I saw it. Ashlyn says, rate my profile picture. 2. Skate Super Chats, rate my profile picture. I'm trying to look at it. I don't know what I'm looking at. It's like, it confuses my brain. I don't know what's happening. I'm sorry. But I like the colors. Phineas says, hi, I'm new. Hello, Phineas. Cam says, best rap artist in your opinion? Probably that guy. EJ says, is the Amazing Digital Circus bad? Yes. Check says, what's on your TV? It's in the description. Thank you, family crew, for the eagle. Stupid little eagle thing. Jennifer says, you like Trump? No comment. Sav says, neighbor. Alright. Justin says, rate my chinchilla. I changed it. It's still pretty bad as a picture. Like, can't you get it out of the cage? Anyways, though, it looks like it has a fat face. I don't know they had such fat faces. Cozy says, rate my profile picture. AI slop. Shad says, what time? In the PM. Mr. Matthew says, are you sure you're a man? Yes. Thank you, Just a Boy, for the flow state. Jesus says 31. Okay. Luke says, do you have a resting bitch face in your preference? I don't know. I don't contemplate that. Merritt says, can you watch VeggieTales? I already have. Natan says, is JJK peak? No. Nelot says, pickles are crunchy. Alright. Eternity says, do you play VR? I do not. Thank you, Mitchie, for the 6-7 abomination. Yuki says, rate my profile picture. 3. Laser says, do you have a headache? No. Moriah says, eat your veggies. I should do that. I've been avoiding them. Thank you again to Just a Boy for the flow state. EJ says, Messi or Ronaldo? Messi. Turtle says, would you count to 100 pp? What? Ice says, how do you eat mangoes? I don't... In a slushy. Check says, 67 ISO speed. Alright. Compared says, don't eat lettuce. I haven't been. Thank you, Hot Pink Hangover, for the stupid clapping seal thing. Mac says, I hope you have a good day. You too, Mac. Aaron says, rate my profile picture. It's too busy. Sandra says, how do you shoot out ribs? What? Ashlyn says, favorite movie? Eyes Wide Shut. Thank you, family crew, for the moldy Sunday. And I see your cat on the grass. Jay says, rate my profile picture. 5. Mikey says, I rate my girlfriend. I condemn you. Cassie says, third time, I'm starting to take this personally. I'm sorry. Cassie? Isn't Cassie correct? Draw says, do you did? No. Nikolai says, Legacy Tabor will be fire. Whatever that is. Family says, why do you always hold your head? I don't know, it's comfortable. Bill says, do you like Geometry Dash? Yes. I like how it forces you to focus. James says, rate my profile picture. 5. Thank you, Mitchie, for the 6-7 gift. Savage says, Para, name a car for an edit. Honda Civic. Owen says, yo, Ghost of Tabor Fire, bro. Alright. Villa says, trans girls love you. Thanks. Outdoor says, Jesus loves you. That's quite a contrast. Thank you both, and Joe G for the high five. Brent says, can we be friends? No. AJ says, eating healthy is boring and only makes it seem like you are living longer. I agree with you. Coca-Cola Super Chats hydrate. Yes, sir. 1 second, please, as I obeyed this guy. Hydrated. EJ says dogs or cats. The former. Moonlight says, do you like chickens as food? LI says, is John Rod the goat? No. Zick says, do you watch anime? No. Billy says, that made me laugh a little. Alright. ADOT says, why does your TV have hallucination? Because I want it to. Joji says, you feeling okay, Don? Yes. Despite what I just did right there, I am feeling okay. Big says Pikachu. Okay. Max says, do you have a big forehead? Yes. EJ says, name a soccer player for an edit. Messi. Chris says, how is it rating people's profile pictures? It's boring. Well, sometimes people have interesting ones and that's fun, but most profiles are boring. The first caption says, hot take. Old dogs are greater than puppies. Yeah, that is a hot take. I disagree. Pig says, rate the profile picture 1. Jolena says, you got the hiccups. Yeah, I might have that. It's something like that. Ashlyn says, Don, you got to be LARPing because earlier today when I was in the stream, you said that you never seen Eyes Wide Shut. I don't remember that. Jennifer says, nah. Okay. Nicole says, can you say the word discover? There you go. Star says, caca. Alright. Dave M says, I nicked my buzzing my pubes. Oh, that's terrible. BS says, I'm gooning right now. Okay. Aaron says, please rate. I fixed it. Oh, it's the cross. I don't like the cloth on the cross. It makes things too busy. But the sun being aligned with the cross, that's pretty cool. Tress says, rate again. Cute dog. Kitso says, name R Jr. Alright. Chance says, do you think I should quit VR to do IRL content? I have 5k subscribers. I think you should give up on YouTube. Iconic says, rate my profile picture. 1. Eclipse says, vinegar. Okay. Alan says, Lauren Faust, owner, My Little Pony, update, new. Okay, whatever. X says, say racial slur now. Joe G says, lol. Alright. Lol says, why do you phrase your question better? Tiny says, hi. Hello, Tiny. BS says, rate my profile picture. 0.1. Ashlyn says, I live for Don's nerd voice. Thank you. Max says, what's your favorite Geometry Dash level? I like Can't Let Go. Flux and Super Chats bonjour. Comment ka vie. I don't know what that means. But bonjour though. Bonjour. Just says, mercy, mercy. Your room is messy, just like Messi. You know mercy is a word in French, like bonjour. It means thank you. Lucas says chama. Okay. Jer says goon. I'm not doing that. C says rate my profile picture. I don't like it. It makes me uncomfortable. Kerr says, Don, it's curse, not cur. Oh, I'm sorry. Maybe if you spelled curse correctly, I would say it correctly. New says favorite game, Minecraft. Cooper says rate my profile picture 1. Alan says Lauren Faust animation cartoon. Oh, I haven't heard about it. FV says yo, so I don't know what you're saying. Thank you again to Minecraft Me for the Laughing Disco gift. And Hot Pink for the Clapping CL. Paramore says, can I come on you? No, you can't. Jay Plays says, rate my profile picture. 2. Owen says, do you like Slipknot? I haven't listened to them. Phineas says, I had to go, but hope you have a good time. See ya, Phineas. Sam says, what is your opinion on the Soviet Union? I don't like it. Lots of people died. Thank you, Awaka, for the Chuck E. Cheese coin. Joe G says, Don. Comment VA means how are you? How am I? I'm good. Tree says, Don, you're hot and I'm gay. Okay. Thank you, Holly, for the 100. And Radin says, your comment on racial slurs. Read as written. I'm not reading as written. Thank you, the Kayoka, for the flow state. AJ says, mercy, not mercy. close enough. What's important is that the pronunciation is the same. Beast says, you can come on me. Invitation denied. Lizzie says, my cat is a backup GK on a Team USA. Alright. Quit says, raid me. Not happening. Your channel looks terrible. Real says, I'm back. Do you remember me? No. Goat says, happy belated birthday, Don. Thank you. And thanks to Woke Pooh Bear for the flow state. And Red Lobster for the stupid little sunshine. Carter says, goon. No. Luke says, time to drink some H2O. No, it's not. Toga says, hello, Gyro. Hello, person. That random says, hi. Hello, random. Max says, are you gay? No. Bald says, do you remember me, Don? Yes, I do. Mariah says, rate my profile picture. 2. Paramore says, can we fuck? No. Thank you again to Woke for the flow state and Red for the sunshine. Pebble says, rate my profile picture. 1. Axiom says, my bad. Why do you keep your lives private? Unlisted? Because I don't want to flood my subscribers' sub boxes with my daily live streams. Anar says, do you like my profile picture? No, I don't. Luke says, if you read this, I'll give someone, random person, a 30,000 Pokemon card. I don't believe you. Moonlight says, do you usually smile? No. Harper says, remember me? No. Dorito says, like my profile picture? No, it's terrible. Resin says, I'm so sorry to disappoint. Okay. Ashlyn says, wow, Don. Quite the intelligent Frenchman. Alright, thank you. Cage says, get a job. Alright. Big says, weenie. Okay. Joe says, soccer is gay. And is for gays and smelly people. I condemn your chat message. Limp says, how's it going? It's going good. Got says, what is your favorite skill on RuneScape? I don't play RuneScape. Kerr says, touche, Don, touche. Thank you. Moss says, hi. Hello, Moss. Not Cade says, poop. Alright. Livin says, just know Jesus loves you, man. Thank you. Fish says, I saw you smile. Yeah, it happens often. EJ says, rate TADC out of 10. I give it a 1. I don't like that show. Sean says, drink some water. Sounds like a plan. 1 second. Chris says, hi. Hello, Chris. Shizu says, put your juice cum all over me. No. Samson says, do you love Goss? I don't know what that is. Ashlyn says, bro, why wouldn't you finish the bottle? Because I don't want to be absent for too long. Egg says, rate Invincible 1 to 10. 2. Joe says, you are so welcome. Thank you. Drift says, duh. Alright. Kitso says, rate my profile picture. 1. Quit says, raid me, I'm subbed. You being subbed doesn't matter. In fact, I want you to unsubscribe right now. New says, rate my profile picture. 1. AJ says, gestuous dumbass. I am not, you are. I'm confused. Oliver says, rate One Piece 1 to 10. 3. Thank you, Ray Sanchez, for the flow state. Arrow says, smile if you're being held at gunpoint. Moore says, rate my profile picture. Horrible, dude. The Kyoko says, rate my profile picture out of 10. It's not bad. Mariah says, good night. Good night, Mariah. Doctor says, does it bend to the left? I don't talk about my penis. Samson says, do you love God? That assumes that I think he exists. Justin says, rate my chinchilla. I changed it. Aw, that's a cute thing. I want to just grab it and just... Robot says, do you love gooning? No comment. Cassie says, finally. You're welcome. Real says, rate my profile picture, little bro. It's too close up. Thank you, Hi Smiley, for the disco ball abomination. Remy says, hi. Hello, Remy. Chant says, rate my profile picture. Horrible. Miles says, why do you do this challenge? Money. Flame says, how long have you been playing Minecraft for? 2013. Goat says 1 million seconds equals 11.57 days. But 1 billion seconds equals 31 years. That's crazy. Jamison says, rate my profile picture. 2. Alan says, Lauren Faust, My Little Pony Classic Original. It's My Little Pony stuff. Ew. Valena super chats. People always need validation. I'm okay with myself. I hope to be like you. Thank you for the super chat, Valena. And by the way, I do recognize you from Matthew's streams. Ross says, have you seen Sopranos? I haven't. Dennis says, can you shout out, please? No. Smile says, you the goat, bro. Thank you. He says, favorite movie? Eyes Wide Shut. Egg says, can you like my big, hairy, sweaty, crusty goo full toes? No. Thank you, Hi Smiley, for the Unk Alert. Hi Smiley 2.0. How says, rate Dexter 1 out of 10. 4. Chef says, what is your favorite movie? I just answered that, dude. Cam says, do you know War Thunder? It's a free game. Max says, finish your water. Remind me in 5 minutes. Sean says, do your parents know you're gay? Nobody knows I'm gay, including myself. JS says, remember me? I remember you gifted me earlier. Rat says, do you like Gravity Falls? When I was a kid. Habla says, watch AOT. I don't know what that is. Goat says hello. Hello, Goat. Waya says, favorite goon site? No comment. Zane says, barbecue or sour cream? Sour cream. Thank you, Zane, for the 6-7 abomination. Real says, what's the music in the background? I don't know, I'm sorry. Eventually, I'll link it in the description, all of the songs, but I haven't gotten to that yet. Jackson says, what if I gift 100? I'll say thank you and move on. How says, what is your favorite show, rate out of 10? Breaking Bad. I'd give it a 5. Thank you, Power Source, for the high 5, and Hi Smiley for the flow state. Your profile picture is pretty intimate. Justice says, it's just a boy. I don't know what you're saying. William says cat. Okay. Tongue says written profile picture. I almost said anime. That's AI slop. I don't like it. Touchdown says get a haircut, bro. Thanks for the reminder. Tongue says, I already read that. Noah says booty. Okay. Thank you, Brian, for the Chuck E. Cheese coin. Goat says, how is your day? Good. Beltran says, what is your favorite song? I like the song Ascension Bloodlines. Durf says, you like Warframe? Yeah, I got banned from that game, though. 10T Super Chats, remember me? No, I don't. Sorry. No. You're pretty unmemorable. Gorilla Tag profile picture. Lots of people have that. And 10T. Yeah, sorry, I don't remember you. Progress says you're my favorite, thank you. Sebastian says rate my profile picture. 1. Thank you, Connor O'Brien, for the goat trophy. It reminds me of the golden statue from the Bible. AJ says, just sue us dumbass means I am a dumbass. Not you are a dumbass. Maybe I am. I mean, I didn't understand what you were saying last message, so. 10T Super Chats. How could you? The profile picture is fair, though. Yeah. Also, I don't think you chat often, so maybe if you chatted often, I would remember you. Mine says, do you like kids in a pedophile way? No. Thank you, Joe G, for the marshmallow. Progress says, do you remember me? Yes. Dragon says, rate my profile picture. I don't like it. Dad says, do you like Crash Bandicoot? No. I don't. Someone says, do you hate black Nigerian mans? I'm not racist. Holly says, are you worried about people judging you? No. In real life, yeah, but not here. Thank you, the Kayoko, for the Chuck E. Cheese coins. 15 of them, thank you. Tank says, do you like fishing? No. Your Sleepy says, mirror, mirror on the wall. My profile picture is the toughest of them all. It is quite tough. Thank you again, Connor O'Brien, for the GOAT trophy. Dusty says, yo, hello, Dusty. Richard says, what do you think of people making fun of me? I'm bisexual. That's evil of them. Mark super chats, holy gesture, music play, other EDM you played before. You don't like the clown music? I like the clown music. Thank you, Heather, for the Chuck E. Cheese coins. Space says hi, hello Space. BFDI says rate my profile picture. 0.5. Porma2 says what's bisextile? Look it up. Durf says how do you get banned from Warframe? I had someone join my clan and told them that if they donated to my clan dojo, you know, to build rooms, I would give them platinum, but I never gave them platinum. Henry says, if I fart in your mouth, what do you do? I contact the police. Fish says, rate my profile picture 1. Gamer says, hi, hello gamer. Thank you, Goats, for the flow state. Thanks. Axie says, favorite fast food restaurant, McDonald's. Thuy says, hi Don. I just got home from work. It was 107 degrees out. Wow, that's insane. I hope you have a car. Eli says, yo, hello Eli. Thank you, Val, for the disco ball abomination. Sirik says, please select my chat. There you go. Avatar says, favorite snake. What are those called? The red ones, the corn snakes, the corn cob snakes. I don't know what they're called. Petal says Pepsi or Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola. Thank you again, Val, for the disco, and Connor for the GOAT trophy. The Blockster says, have you heard about the country Malta? No. Is that in Africa? I vaguely heard about it. I don't know much. King says, please shout out racism. I don't like racism. Rice says, were you happy Spain won? I didn't really care. 1 second. I need to drink some water. I'm getting delirious and mispronouncing a lot of stuff and going crazy. I'm gonna take a deep breath. Yeah, I don't really care about sports. But if you were to ask me, like, what team I was rooting for, if I had to choose, it'd be Spain. So I was slightly happy, but I didn't really care. Thank you, Thuy, for the plastic flower. Yo says Ray. Okay. William says I'm him. Alright. Parker says, do you make enough for rent? I mean, I don't talk about my job. Me says, you like my profile picture? I do not. Lady says, can you rate my profile picture? I don't like it. Stacy says, hi. Hello, Stacy. Elite says, what's your favorite game? I like Minecraft. Splat says, can you do a JoJo pose? No, I don't even know what that would look like. Jose says, are you tired? No. AZ says, rate my profile picture. It's horrible, dude. Joji says, super chat. I'm sorry. You're right, I missed it. Joji super chats. They say that during sex, you burn off as many calories as running 8 miles. Who the hell runs 8 miles in 30 seconds? Okay, that's... To be honest, I'm a little confused. I need to read that again. I mean, I kind of get it, but I'm kind of confused. Ziva says hi. Hello, Ziva. AJ says he isn't a fan of Gorilla Tag. Yeah, I'm not a fan. Richard says everybody in this chat is a little bit gay. Okay. Tenti says you missed my dono. Did I? Tenti super chats. I gotta go. So you have a good day. You too, Tenti. You sent that like 10 minutes ago. So, and you're still here. So, I imagine you've been here just because you wanted me to see your super chat. So I'm sorry that I had you stay longer. Have a good day, dude. Ashlyn says bye, Don. See ya, Ashlyn. Champ says hi. Hello, Champ. Um, who the hell runs 8 miles in 30 seconds? Okay. Silently says, do you show emotion off camera? A little bit more. It says, do you like PSG? I don't know what that is. Rexy says, rate my profile picture. It looks like AI slot. Stacy says, W stream, thank you. RM says, I guarantee you, Somalia is going to win the World Cup next time. I don't think they even participate. Man says Donnie is gay. That's incorrect. Jack says, I'm making the entirety of Deltarune Chapter 1 in Scratch. Good luck with that. Gamer says, do you suck her infested clit? I wouldn't do that. It says, do you like PSG? It's a soccer club. I mean, I just told you that I didn't even know what it was, so why would I like it? That Dying says, is this pre-recorded? No. Richard says, everybody in this chat is a little bit gay. Okay. Tell says, why do you look like you're taking a huge diarrhea? I don't know, man. Thank you, Andre, for the disco ball abomination. Jalen says, suck my dog. No. Tinted says, give me tips for YouTube. My tip is to come up with a better username and profile picture. Nania says, Java, Minecraft, or Bedrock? Java. Thank you, Raul, for the 6-7 abomination, and Andre for the second disco. Ronvin says, when was the last time you ate breadsticks? Less than a year. It's been a few months. Lula says, blink twice if you need help. I'm fine, man. Dorito says, you like Last of Us? Yeah. Tinted says, that's rude. I don't care. Alan says, Lauren Foss, how do you shave your crotch? Go really nice and slow. I don't know what you're saying. Lake says hi. Hello, Lake. Oogie says, rate my profile picture, please. Oh, that's cool. Jack says, can you rate my profile picture, please? Terrible. Jay says, my username is just a boy. Oh, how about you spell it correctly? 2K says, rate my profile picture. 2. Thank you again, Andre, for the disco ball abomination. Dusty says, rate my profile picture. It's too zoomed out. Cold says, are you gay? No. I not says, rest time. It is water time. I'm not taking a nap, though. 1 second. Thank you, Raul, for the 6-7s, and Gavin for the flow state and the high five. Thank you, Gavin. Reminds me of that Red Dead NPC. If you know, you know. Cameron says, rate my profile picture. Oh, that's cute. Water says FDMN. Alright. Holy says, well, I'm gonna go now. I might see you later. You mispronounced the word holy, by the way. Oh, that's embarrassing. Armand says, chug your water now. Thank you, Hack, for the 21 Chuck E. Cheese coins. Grayson says hi. Hello, Grayson. Zoe says I'm back. Hello, Zoe. Zeke says, why are you so grumpy today? I don't know, dude. Alan says, Lauren Faust, My Little Pony Classic Original Update. Okay, I don't care. Thank you, person. Thank you, person with Asian lettering, for the Chuck E. Cheese coin. Izzy Ann says, do you smile? Yes. Hello says, you're my femboy. No, I'm not a femboy. Dusan says, what so you think of Trump? No comment. Splat says, do you know what Splatoon is? It's a Nintendo game. Dutch says, do you remember Azzy Time? Yes, I do. Santo says, what's your favorite NFL team? Spain. Dave M says, fake Uncle Alert. Okay. Kotick says hello. Hello, Kotick. Flame says, rate my profile picture. 1. Srick says, no comment. Okay. Savar says, hey, how are you? I'm good. F-Boy says, I'm getting paid to watch your live. How does that work? I'm curious. Check Cake says, what's your biggest goal in life? To make interesting videos. Linda says Spain, crying emoji. What's so crazy about that? Terror says, is this only for excuse me. Is this only subscribers? What do you mean? Thank you, Levi, for the plastic flower. Jay says turtles or doves? Doves, obviously. We Love says, do you remember me? I don't. Srick says, do you like jazz music? A little bit. How? Says Don. Every time I see you, my day gets better. Thank you. Rai Rai says, are you okay? Yes. The Irish says, God loves you, man. Thanks. Ross says, who the hell runs 8 miles in 30 seconds? Oh hey, there's the punchline I didn't understand. Kinetic says, why is this chat so weird? Because I don't have moderators. Cameron says, smile now. No. Pud says, does holding your head give your brain more processing power? It feels like it. Thank you, Hack, for the 100 preschool stars. But, I don't know why. I'm just comfortable in this position, and I think it does increase my brain power like 1%. That says get mods. No. Rizzy says otter. Okay. Bennett says I fart at Googleplex. Okay. Eric says, do you like cheese? Yes. Brain says thoughts on France. I don't know. Paris is overrated. Lou says, where do you get that background on that monitor? Check the description. Bennett, already read that. RM says, would you ever work for a Somalian pimp who owns a pink donuts shop? Probably not, but not because he's Somalian. Just bag of chips super chats. Do you remember me and my son Chipston? I remember you, but not Chipston. Dusty says, do you know Azzy Time looks gay now because he shaved his beard? I did not know. Fishy says fishy. Okay. Thank you, Hack, for the 20, 36 sparkles. 40. AJ says, no, dumbass. Most people have sex in 30 seconds, not run 8 miles. I understand that, but I still don't get the joke. Like, okay. Alan says, Lauren Faust, Bonnie, Zach, dude, I don't know. Every chat message of yours is just confusing. I don't get it. Lily says, do you remember me? No. Lincoln says, raid Becca Fortnite. I don't want to. Waffer says, femboys or tomboys? Tomboys. Splat says, you disrespected my boy John Rod. I don't care. Thank you, that boy, for the sparkles. Void says, why do you look depressed? I don't know, man. AH says, favorite sport, basketball. Thank you, that boy, for the uncle alert. The Goat says, remember the ladder incident? Yeah, the profile picture. Leo says, I came back, and now it's at 1 hour. Yeah, that's correct. Sri says, why don't you? Why don't I what? F-Boy says, ever have a For Loco? Never. Zeno says, other than chat, do you look or watch anything else on stream? No, I'm completely focused on this. Jason says, you're still going? Yes. Thank you, Hack, for the 100, for the 124 100s. James says, do you like tacos? Yes. JK says, I have 2 friends on Discord. Donnie is one. Yeah. I looked at your profile picture, and it looks like the default one. Cassie says, he scores, and did it again, let's go. What? Corey says, do you ever get tired of living? Sometimes. Twix says, I shit myself. Okay. Max says, what's your GOAT Kanye song? All the lights. BW says, I just ate gorilla pickles. Okay. Tier says, do you watch BFDI? I don't know what that is. Isn't that some stupid Roblox thing? Dave M says, recommend an alcoholic beverage. I don't know, dude. I'm not into alcohol. Billy says, justice for Chipston. Who cares? Always says I'm tired. Alright. YT says my balls are itchy. Okay. Marchant says if you had to choose to keep something forever, what will it be? Well, I have a pretty cool piece of YouTube memorabilia. I'm not gonna say what it is though, but I like it. I might choose that. The Ultimate says, why do you hate Roblox? Because it's a stupid child game. Nibble says, why you so white? Genetics. Net says, rate my profile picture 1. F-Boy says, can you let out a primal bird? Caw? No. Tier says, BFDI is an object show. That doesn't tell me anything. Look, it sounds like some children thing, and I'm not a child, so I wouldn't know it. Tenty Super Chats. In sending the black hand after you, De Ravello. I hope you're not sending a hitman. Maxi says I like okay. Username says username. Okay. Justa says you can't see this comment because you're gay. I'm not gay. Thank you, Mello, for the 6-7 abomination. Dave M says bro gonna crash out. Yeah, I might. Jordan says top 3 video games. I liked Assassin's Creed 3. Username says 67. Okay. Cameron says, can you remember me please? That's not how it works. I can't just force my brain to... That's so stupid. Go says, hi, how is your day going today? It's going good. Nat says, why 1 out of 10? Because it's so bland and boring. Buddy says, what's your favorite sport? I don't care about sports. Thank you, Fighter, for the disco ball abomination. A's says, Spain is not an American football team to win. I know. Rala says, hello, how are you? I'm good. BM says, have you ever watched JJK? No. That says, do you like that Spain won the World Cup? Yeah. Jack says, I'm also making a little short film. I already have one lined up on my channel. Well, looking at your username, Jack's Productions, like Digital Circus, it's probably gonna suck. Beef says, you're my favorite live stream person, thank you. J-Dub says, are you autistic? I am not autistic. JK says, ever heard of an older 80s video game system called ColecoVision? No, I haven't. Tier says, dude, BFDI is not a kid's thing. Yes, it is. Pud says, where did you get your shirt? It looks comfortable. This, I got it at JCPenney. Got says, bro's tiny hat was promised 3,000 years ago. I'm not wearing a yarmulke. JK says, ever heard? Already read that. Easton says, I have a pug in my room. I'm happy. Okay. Jordan says, do you have an intellectual disability? I do not. And that's supposed to be an, not a. The Russian says, rate my profile picture. Unoriginal. NF says, no raisins. Okay. F-boy says, tits or ass. I like the face, not any of that. Forrest says, do you tang, wang, bang, bang? What? Logman says, can you listen to me? Well, I'm reading you. Gamer says, Lauren Foss, My Little Pony Rainbow Dash Cum Jar. Okay. Cameron says, force your brain or I'll touch you. You're not touching me. That's not happening. Brad says, rate my profile picture. Unoriginal. Spangla says, hi. Hello, Spangla. JK says, I respect any bro that shops at JCPenney. Interesting. Arvin says, are you gay? No. Wow says, rate my profile picture. Oh, that's pretty cute. A blinged out cat. Gibber says, bro's locked in. Yeah. Thank you again, Fighter Wolf, for the disco ball. Net says, there is a shadow 2. And do you like pancakes? I do like pancakes. Carter says, why don't you raid me? Looking at your profile picture, you're channel probably sucks. H says baddie. Okay. Just says Ku Klux Klan. Alright. Kale says Proverbs 5:3. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. No thank you. Thank you, Alana Rat, cult leader, for the disco ball. 34 says fuck my pet dog. I'm not doing that. Bella says a lot of teens and adults play Roblox. Mostly children though. Scary says gay. Okay. 1969 says why can't a skeleton go skydiving? He didn't have the balls. Oh, that's nice. Azizi says sucks. Making fun of the amazing digital circus is not cool. Actually, it is cool. Thank you, Bach, for the 6-7 gift. Vin says, Dear Don, my father is getting a BBL, and I don't know what to do. I'm sorry, that's pretty weird, I'm sorry. JK says, JCPenney and Sears were king in the 80s. Oh yeah, I think I can see that. Remember that. East says, thank you so much for reading mine. You're the best. Thank you. Sri says, bro, why do you not use the bathroom? I use it sometimes. My dog says nipples are tasty. Okay. Ross says, they say 30 seconds of sex is like running 8 miles. Who the hell runs 8 miles in 30 seconds? Now you get it? Yeah, but is that how the science works? Like, every second of sex is equal to every second of running? I'm just... Min says, rip my pop. What? Swick says you're locked in. I am locked in. Jay says, are you okay, broski? You seem tired of this bullshit. I am okay. How says Dawn, every time I see you, my day gets... Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Min says, rate my profile picture. 0.5. Sir says, background. You're such an NPC. Speak properly. Stacy says, hi man. Hello, Stacy. Corpse says, I'm gay for you. Fuck me hard. I'm not doing that. GK says, who do you think you are? A human and streamer. Azizi says, do you have a big dick? No comment. Scary says, every time I find your stream, you get gayer. How's that? Hamburger says, are you tired of reading these comments? No. I don't know says, he's right. The amazing digital circus is garbage. Yeah, but you know what isn't garbage? Terraria. Cameron says, yo, can you be gay real quick? No. Jay says, why did you say my comment like that? Because I just got those vibes, so. Crazy says, trailer trash. Alright. Meme says, have you ever tried to abstract? No. Official says, what graphics card do you use? I have a GTX 1080. 34 says, can you wiggle your penis in my mouth? Not interested. Turo says, hi Zeddy, I'm back. Hello, Toro. MX says, you're funny as fuck. Thank you. Dusty says, how did you find AzuTime YouTube channel? I typed the word chatting into YouTube, and the word chatting, I think, was in the description, so I found it that way. Goat says, does YouTube Analytics show you the average view time per viewer? Yeah, it's usually like 50 seconds or 60 seconds. It's around there. Xfusion says, what's your favorite color? Gray. Net says, rate the next person profile picture out of 10. No. Blue says, can you wiggle your penis on my butt? I don't want to. Jace says, my voice is deeper than Big X the plug. Alright. Natalie says, I love watching your videos. Your hair is so pretty. Thank you. Minnie says, why 0.5? I don't know, man. It just sucks. Jordan says, what is the chats thing? Dude, speak properly. Deborah says, rate my profile picture. Oh, that's cool. What is that place? It looks interesting. Henry says, how do I get on the screen? You figured it out. Not actually says, what's the difference between a snowman and a snow woman? Snowballs. Oh, that's cute. Team says, you look like you need sleep. I'm fine, man. Thank you again to Alana for the laughing disco. And that boy for the Uncle Alert. RM says, I'm trying to shove a pizza slice in my electrical socket. It won't fit. Don't do that. There's no point in that. And March says, by the way, Roblox isn't a game. It's supposed to be a platform. Okay, nerd. Thank you, Justin, for the flow state. Blue says, would you lick a sweaty man for $10,000? I would not do that. Deborah says Iceland. Okay. Socrates says, why is not sock burger but not dude? What are you saying? Deborah says Iceland. Okay. Iceland. Thank you for informing me. JK says, where my girlfriend Jen. They haven't been here in like a month. And I see your profile picture. Football says, you like men? I don't. Cup says, what about 100,000? I would do that. Lasagna says, hello, Don. Remember me? I don't. Thank you again to Justin for the flow state. Justin Montanez. Montana's like the state of Montana mixed with Mexico. Scary says, the amazing digital circus is trash. Yeah, it is. Arthur says, rate my profile picture. 1. JK says, Ramon said something funny earlier today. He's funny often. Malcolm says, can I leak my address? Yes, but I wouldn't recommend it. Tolosi says, favorite boss in Terraria? The Eye of Cthulhu. It's... yeah. Brow says, I subscribed. Thank you. Carter says, do you believe in Jesus Christ our Lord? I do not. Inquity says, what's with the background? It's to look cool. Jordan says, I do speak properly. You just don't read properly. I mean, maybe, but when I pointed out your English error of A and an, I was right there. Official says, have you ever got into a fight before? I haven't. Cambry says, I dare you to sing. I'm not interested. Happy says, blah blah blah. No comment. Gerald says, Ohio's goated. Okay. MN says, what do you like, apple or vegetable? I like apples more. Ra says, 30 seconds of sex is like 2 minutes of walking. Okay. Thank you for letting me know the exact science. First Captain says, has someone in here ever actually leaked an address you thought was genuine? No comment. Dill says, what is your favorite video game? Minecraft. Max says, no one gives a fuck. Okay. Rice says, hello. Hello, Rice. Hayden says, crack my finger or finger my crack. The former. Cameron says, yo, don't you just hate it when your dog impregnates you? I've never had that experience, and that's not even possible. Minnie says, come out of the closet. I'm not in the closet. JK says, Ohio is the Florida of the North. Okay. Ario says, that's mean. What? Gray says, you're gay. Alright. Easton says, why do you use that voice for me? I'm not zesty. Too bad. Those are the vibes I got. Just says, you remind me of L from Death Note. Do you ever get that? No. Tisk says, hey. Hello, Tisk. Friday says, rate my profile picture 1. Thank you, Jersey Mike, for the flow state. Maxie says, cure for cancer or food for the whole world? Cure for cancer. Stars says, can I spray shit on you? No, you cannot. Easton says, haha, he forgot he was gay. I did forget. Yeah. Malcolm says, help, my cat is ripping off my skin. Call somebody, and like the police maybe. Henry says, wait, how this works? What? Can you be more specific, please? Joe Block says, why do you look depressed? I don't know, man. Rebecca says, do you have a death wish? No, I don't. BG says, hi. Hello, BG. Shane says, name, please. Don. Tolosi says, how much in-game hours do you have in Terraria? I don't know. It's spread out on Steam and PS3 and... yeah, I don't know. Probably around 100, though. Fox says, yo, rock Don. Thank you, person that is addicted to Ice Cream Man streams. Sane says, QH fuck. Okay. Ima says, you look like you're about to cry. Are you okay? Yeah, I'm okay. Happy says, did you grow up with Blue Clues, the cartoon? No. Joanna says, name any car brand for I can make and edit. Tesla. Gerald says, give me your cheeks. No. Minnie says, come out of the closet. I'm not in the closet. Thank you, Jesus loves you, for the high five. Thanks. Malcolm says, we need to find the Tommy gun. What Tommy gun? Cooper says, you sound gay. Okay. Julie says, rate my profile picture. I made it myself. I think it's 4. The police says hello. Hello, the police. The Braxton says, do you play Genshin Impact? Hell no. Ray says, eat a schlong dong, gay boys in the chat. Okay. No comment. Cameron says, is it weird that I skin people and wear their skins? I have a collection. Yeah, that is weird. The first captain says, eliminating cancer wouldn't cancel out any other illnesses. At least food would solve most starvation. Okay. You're right. Sane says you're gay. I'm not. Easton says, OMG, he is gay. He said he just forgot. Well, I'm not gay anymore because I forgot. Charlotte says hi. Hello, Charlotte. Percy says, rate the profile picture. 1. Chad says, do you make much money doing these random live streams? Yes. Jordan says, yes. You were correct about and not a. My apologies, good sir. Okay. Thank you for being cordial. Jetta says, how big is Batista's dick? I don't know, dude. Turo says, they digging at me. Alright. D-Man says, I shit myself. Alright. Roman says, are you gay? Okay. I am not gay. Money says, how tall are you? I am 5'7". AJ says, do you play Fortnite? No. Bentley says, welcome to the amazing digital circus. I don't like you. Danger says, gay. Okay. Ace Ray says, what did the doorknob say to the door? Don't open that. It's a panel. It's a pane. Oh, that's pretty funny. Dev says, H2O time. Not right now. Jake says, laugh. No. Ford says, rate my profile picture. Cute. 2 dogs. Eric says, didn't you say sometimes you play Fortnite? Yeah. Very occasionally. Dev says, I was tickling my brother's toes. My mom said stop, wait until he's born. Whoa, what? That's crazy. Thank you, Arson, for the 6-7 abomination. Rare says, you look so tired and stressed. Go take a rest, if you're tired. I'm not tired. Vanta says, I love your streams. They are so funny. Thank you. Ezra says, God loves. Thank you. Robin says, do you remember me? No. Scary says, have you ever had an experience where you mow the lawn, but the lawn is your goldfish? No. Noia says, search up misogynism. I already know what that is. I don't like it. I want women to be treated equally. Jersey says, Donnie Boy is not gay, but his boyfriend is. Okay. Brad says, you know what Titanfall 2 is? Yes. Rice says, why do you say some messages differently? I don't know. It just comes naturally. Fox says, you got in a better mood once you saw Fox. How cute. I did? Okay. By the way, thank you again to Jersey Mike for the flow state. The gift. Thank you. Shitty says, I feel like this shit pre-recorded. If you think that way, then you're not smart. Spud says poop eater. Okay. Hayden says rate my profile picture. Horrible. Inquity says who is Fox? Yeah, I don't know. Rav says when was... Dude, I already answered that. MN says the chicken is flying because it's a bird. Chickens don't fly. D-Man says have you clapped a kid? No. Jersey says Donnie, you are awesome. Thank you. Sean says do your parents know you're gay? I already answered that. D-Man says have you... I already read that. Joe Block says how much money you make off of this? At least $30 an hour. Arthur says sent fake laughing disco abomination. Okay. Spud says shout me out. No. Shoutouts are stupid. Riz says how do I poop? It should be instinctual. JK says still laughing about the Chuck E. Cheese low class. Oh, that's nice to hear. Richie says, do you want me to draw something for you? I don't. Scoot says, got bit by a coral copperhead rattle macazin. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm guessing that's... I'm glad you're alive. I don't know how poisonous that is. Bentley says, why you no like me? I don't like giving shoutouts. That's... I don't know why you resorted to that. ER says, rate my profile picture. 1. Breaking says, rate the profile. Absolutely terrible. Easton says, you did indeed say you were gay, but you forgot, so technically you're gay. I think you're wrong. Riz says, I spread my cheeks and my poop doesn't come out, only comes out of my mouth. That's not possible. Jersey says, stop saying Donnie is gay. He has a girlfriend that I'm banging. No comment. 1 second, please. My eyes are kind of burning. Okay, I think they're good now. Football says, was Noya right? I don't know who that is. Turo says, you look like customer support. Yeah, I do. Easton says, I'm right. No, you're not. Inquity says, if only kids weren't allowed on the internet, things might be better. Brain says, you like books? Yes. Actually, not really. I wish I did. Happy says, bro's fed up with the allegations. Okay. Zin says, you're gay. I am not gay. Braden says, I nutted in my gay cat's peanut hole. I condemn your chat message. Scary says, guys, this isn't pre-recorded. He deletes all streams. I don't delete all streams. You can watch all my streams. I don't know what you're talking about. Just go to the playlist section. You're an idiot. Nat says, what should I change my profile picture to? An animal. Jake says, voice message emojis. Okay. Hemming says, sent a pink limo. Okay. Porma2 says, what style is your facial hair? Clean shaven. Riz says, guys, trust he eats cat poop. No, I don't. Hi says, this chat scares me. Okay. Max says, watch you start YouTube. Nobody knows what you just said. MT says, hi, how are you? I'm good. D-Man says, it don't fit. Okay. Jed says, how is this pre-recorded when you're literally reading our messages? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Inquity says, when did this start? Like 2 hours ago? Porma2 says, does he eat big poop? I do not. Scary says, oops, you put them in playlists. Yep, that's what I do. Nicholas says, hi. Hello, Nicholas. Socrates says, have you clapped your dog as a kid? No. JK says, haha, go to the playlist section. You're an idiot. I was overly mean there. I didn't need to do that. I probably shouldn't have. Jersey says, Donnie Boy is not gay, assholes. Yeah, I'm not gay. Hayden says, could you massage it till I fart? No. March says, if you get $10 million and you have 3 days to spend it, how will you spend it? I'd probably buy a Tesla. 1 second, please. I'll be right back. second, please, as I put my headset on. The first captain says, well, almost all streams. The first one I ever watched isn't in the list. Yeah, you're right. It's most streams. It's not. There's some that are omitted. AJ says, what? If How are there so many people saying that? Former 2 says hog revealed. Okay. Oh, yeah, right there. 1 second, please. Ashlyn says IFA. Okay. Sisyphus says I started IFA. Congrats. You're successful. JK says don't forget to wipe. Okay. Sane says you're not gay, my bad. Yeah, I'm not gay. Boxing says I just got here, Don. What's up, Boxing? Thank you again to Jersey Mike for the flow state. Pormer 2 says you need to get a trim. I do. Jersey says, Donnie, you like all the gifts I sent you today? Yeah, as I just said. Thank you for the flow state. And Justin Montanez. Leap says the background video is memorizing. Yeah, it is. What is your... I wonder what videos you make. I quit says IFA. Okay. MX says IFA. Okay, I get it, guys. Cameron says keep talking. I'm almost there. There's no way you're actually masturbating. Leo says, do you like reading the comments and like replying? Yes. Kate says, do you have any pets? I have dogs. Scary says, yo, diddleless diddler of all diddlers. Please don't clap this chat section. I won't. Zayden says, is doing this annoying or is it fun? It's a mix of both. Bronson says hi. Hello, Bronson. PT says, please shout out, today is my birthday. No. Leave the stream. Unsubscribe. Trav says, do the scuba dance for an edit. No. Thank you, Arson, for the Uncle Alert. I see a kid with a sports jersey 9. Chilling says Messi or Ronaldo. Messi. Happy says your gaming chair is so worn out. Can I buy you a new one? Yes, you can. Leah or Jetta says penises is a big. Okay. Zen says, have you ever nutted in your cat's kitty litter? No. Fyron says, hey Don. Hope you're doing well. Any plans for the rest of your summer? Also, love the curly hair. Looks good on you. Thank you. And I have no plans for the rest of the summer. Thank you, Hedons, for the Fortnite loot box thingamajig. Thank you. Hedons Inc. I'm guessing you have lots of tattoos. Jersey says Donnie is the best on YouTube. Thank you. Trippy says, why do you take off the labels off the water bottles? The aesthetic. Henry says, I can't see. Sorry. Hemming says, did he pre-order GTA 6 yet? I don't have a PS5 yet. JK says, Ramon got excited. He saw the outline. Okay. Marchant says, I have to go now. Bye, Don. See you, Marchant. Scary says, GTA 6 is coming out before you. Read the next comment. Oh, wait. GTA got delayed again. Okay. Daddy says, I bought a car for my dad today. You bought a car for yourself? Gwill says, hey, dude. Hello, Gwill. Jersey says, Donnie Trump is a scumbag. Okay. Braden says, have you ever played with your dog's Pinar? I haven't. Happy says, Don, GTA 6 on PS5 is said to run at max 40 FPS. I don't believe that. Cruz says, can I buy you a PS5? Yes. Boxing says, is Don short for Donovan? No comment. Kate says, y'all stop sending weird messages. Or send more. Guilmero says, 67 balls, Ohio. Okay. Mr. Munch says, what do I do if I have a second-degree burn? Go to the hospital, obviously. Leo says, what sport is your favorite? I don't care about sports. The first captain says, I'm in a similar situation. Splatoon Raiders comes out in one day, but I don't have a Switch 2 yet. Okay. That's it looks like you don't care about Splatoon Raiders that much to buy a Switch 2. Like, couldn't you just buy? 2L says, do you remember me? I do. I remember your dog's eye. Nicholas says, are you gay now? Jersey says, Donnie, I hope Trump meet the Grim Reaper soon. No comment. Rio says, yo, what's up, Don? It's Rio. Hello, Rio. I quit says, my sheets are hard. Alright. Sisyphus says, a person who, if, all the time, they have nothing to, about except ifs. Okay. Thank you, Yamal, for the flow state. Yamal World Cup. I'm pretty sure that's a Spain player. Jordan says, what is your chatter's obsession with your sexuality? They want to rise out of me. Cage Raw says, do you like horror movies? Not in particular. Joe says, hey dude. Hello, Joe. Boxing says, do you live in Texas? No comment. Shredder says, it's 11 p.m. for me. Want to sneak downstairs? I'm not interested. Fear says, I'm gay as hell. That's cool, Fear. Bentley says, spit on my pickle and give it a little tickle. No. Zen says, already read that. Jersey says, see you tomorrow, Donny boy. Have a great night. See ya, Jersey. Scoot says, thank you so much for showing up my For You page. Also, do you get a headache from doing this? I do not. Jack says, the short film I'm making is about a group of kids in the 80s who get murdered at midnight. It's called Midnight Massacre. It sounds pretty bad. Goober says, bark for us now. Rio says, yo, what's up, Don? Hello, Rio. Potato says, eat a potato. I don't want to. Trav says, what is blue balls? It's when you're aroused, but it never gets, and you never ejaculate. Scary says, gay is you. It's not true. Fear says, I think you like men. Alright. Bane says, how do I get my chats up there? You know how. Thank you, that one guy, for the Eagle. America's 250. Vin says, thoughts on 9/11 scented candles? I don't know that was a thing. Seems insensitive. Skater says, I like turtles. Okay. VR says, are you funky? I don't know what that means. Shredder says, I meant should sneak downstairs. Again, I'm not. Do whatever you want, dude. Sure, go ahead. You do that. Helping says, do you remember me? No. Liam says, I heard a kid called Donald Trump an Oompa Loompa day. Okay. Man says, Messi or Ronaldo? Messi. Thank you again to that one guy for the Eagle. Desert Horizon says, the Fitness Gram Pacer test is a multi-stage aerobic capacity test. It gets progressively harder as the test goes on. Thank you for the money. I have no need for that information, though. I don't plan on taking the test. Anas says, are you Muslim? No. Yeah, Tis says, did the World Cup make you like soccer? Not at all. Jay says, I'm back again. Hello. Jason says, can you smell feet for $5? How about 50,000? Fear says, Triple T is my husband. Okay. Spike says, do you crack? No comment. Oreo says, what is your favorite sport? Basketball. VR says, did you let the Barts out? I don't know what that means. I'm not Homer if you're asking that. Thank you again to that one guy for the Eagle gifts, and Arson for the Uncle Alert. JK says, read the 4th release of the UFO files. It'll shock you. Dude, I don't care about the UFOs. UFOs, I don't care. Even if it comes from the government, I don't care. I think it's all fake. Bane says, can you rate my profile picture, please? 1. Noodle says, can you tell that guy to stop putting eagle emojis? No. Boxing says, I went fishing today and caught a fish. Oh, that's cool. Bry says, are you depressed? No. Thank you, Gritty, for the eagle. You followed in that one guy's path and sent an eagle as well. Thank you, Gritty. Mr. Munch says, the burn is on my fingers. How do I fix it? Dude, I'm not the person to ask. Aldene says, raid me. A raid? No, I'm not raiding you. Denise says, hi. Hello, Denise. DM says, to be or not to be. That in on my mama blood. Okay. Timmy says, what all do you do when... Dude, speak properly. Dave M says, Biden kicked the bucket. No way. Thank you, Gritty, for the flower. And, baseball for the 100. The 21 100s. Scary says, yeah, you is if pickle... Dude, what are you saying? James the Great, super chats poo. Alright. What is that? Is that... It looks like a country flag, but I don't think it is. PP says, do you have a vagina? No. VR says, do you at least visit Folk Valley? I don't know what that is. Francis says, what candy do you like? Nerd gummy clusters. Kate says, someone asked if you're black, Lamau. Okay. Caden says, how's your day going? It's going good. Braden says, have you ever ate cow dick? Never. Money says, do you remember me? No. James says, same. Okay. Tess says, I'm not, am I? I don't understand. Splat says, what do you think of Alex G? Who is that again? Alex G? Why did you omit the last name? There's so many Alex G's in the world. I don't... Sophie says, do you like the artist Michael Jackson? Yeah. Fear says, are you unemployed? I don't talk about my job. Math says, you watch anime? No. Bry says, K. Okay. Sprout says, are you a homosexual bitch? I condemn your message, and I'm not gay. Z Taylor says, rate my profile picture. I already did, I think. Thank you, Yuda, for the preschool stars. 75, thank you. HS says, what's your favorite country? USA. The first captain says, the UFO files are definitely a distraction to keep those with active minds at bay. A distraction, a psyop? I don't think it's a distraction either. I think it's just... Artful says, rate my profile picture. 1. Hi says, I don't want to be here. Any more help? Oh, I'm sorry. You should talk to someone in real life. Happy says, stop stream now. Christian says, I saw you in the Epstein files. I'm too young for that. Aiden says, favorite movie, Eyes Wide Shut. Kate says, rate my profile picture, Don. 1. Maribel says, do you want to do, you got, do you... What are you saying? Short says, is the reason you don't say your job because you don't have a job? Possibly. Gorg says, you like Trump? No comment. JP says, hi, hello. Cherry says, you lost the game. What game? 1 second, please. Thank you, Yuda, for the Chuck E. Cheese coin. 19, thank you. Helping says, what the fuck? Okay. Trinity says, are you tired? A little bit. Blood Moon says, all is silence. The road is straight, without turning in darkness. Now, let there be an end to all things. That was cool. Happy says, what's your favorite video? I like when Randy Johnson hit a bird. Rival says, duh. Okay. Noodle says, what's your opinions on the guy who comes out of your floorboard? I never met him. Thank you, Christian, for the marshmallow hand. Edit says, you found the 1 out of 1,000. Okay. Spike says, sorry for the comment. Any tips for middle school? Leave the stream because this is not appropriate for you. Bray says, Bray too stupid has the cleanest juice. Okay. Soul says, do you like BTS? Not at all. Francis says, do you like the World Cup? No. McLiam says, do you remember me? No. Wit says, no one saw this. I saw it. Pretend says, sent Chuck E. Cheese coin. Okay. That's fake. Star says, rate my profile picture 1. Carl says, the nuclear bomb is a bomb that is really bad for the human environment, and it can do corruption to the air and wipe out an entire state. But the nuclear power plant can't wipe out a whole state. I didn't know that, thank you. Like, actually. The Old Gamer Super Chats. Second favorite Kubrick film. Eyes Wide Shut being first place. I don't know. I mean, they're all great. A Clockwork Orange is great. Barry Lyndon is great. I mean, they're almost all a tie. Like, they're so good. Zoe says, rate my profile picture. 1. Iad says hi. Hello, Iad. KL says, what happens when you drop the soap in prison? You get raped. Blue says, what's a Jeef? I don't know. But if I had to choose, it'd probably be a Clockwork Orange. Happy says hi. Hello, Happy. AZ says, rate my profile picture. 2. Boxing says, are you subscribed to Zach D Films? I'm not, but now that he's on my mind and I'm looking at your profile, that's clearly that's from Zach D. CJ says, why do you look made? Spelled correctly. Mon says chicken. Okay. Goon says, old John is here to eat the beans. Alright. Cat says, yo, head hurt? No, it doesn't. 1 second, please. Chad says, are they listening? I know the company fell through. No comment. Vin says, The Shining. Yeah, that's another good movie. Blast says, do you make a good money from streaming? Yes. Luke says, I gave the card away. Okay. Ian says, I'm sad. I'm sorry, Ian. ASAP says, do you like Radiohead? Yeah. Cherry says, what's the most embarrassing? I don't know. I never know how to respond to that question. I can't think of anything. Liam says, bro, you just read mine 5 minutes ago. Okay. Why do you say that? ST says, I love money. Okay. Speaking of that, thank you again, Christian, for the marshmallow. And Dash C Super Chats. Hey man, God woke us up today. Be happy and grateful. Thank you, but I don't think he did. I appreciate the positivity and like trying to evangelize me, but I don't believe in that. Boxing says, my profile picture is just a stock image from Google. Nothing to do with Zach D Films. Oh, I was wrong. But you can't blame me, though. It does look like Zach D. You gotta say. Thank you, Short Asian, for the flow state. Short Asian. Sprout says, are you a YouTuber? Yeah. Joe says, I have stage 333 testicular cancer. I'm sorry. Scary says, rate my profile picture 1 to 10. 1. Corey says, rate my profile picture. 2. Brendan says, who do you go into? No comment. Thank you, Utah, for the 100s, and Ben for the Chuck E. Cheese coin. Francis says, should I subscribe? No. Josh says, hey there. Would you mind throwing it back for us all? I would mind. Jerry says, rate my profile picture. Absolutely terrible. Alex says, sometimes when my butthole itchy, I scratch it. You did not need to share that. 1 second, please. Stock says, what rank are you in puppy surgery? I don't know what that is. Henry says, I don't say I type. Okay. What's the difference? Say, type, it doesn't matter. Ol says poggers. Okay. Thank you again to Short Asian for the flow state. Rivals says duh. Okay. And thank you, Goon Pros, for the sunshine thing. Goon Pro subscription. Thank you. Brixton says, have you ever played Fortnite? I have. G says, I'm a chud. That's okay that you're a chud, G-boy. Road says monkey. Okay. Kane says, the nut monster is coming tonight. Alright. Tempest says, have an amazing night. You too, Tempest. Kel says, rate my profile picture. Oh, that's wholesome. Scary says rate my it's bad. It's nothing's happening. I don't like your profile picture. It is a 1. Thank you, James, for the Uncle Alert. Thank you. And call it for the flow state. Dr. Leave says, Don, I'm boat captain. Alright. Landon says, can you rate my PP? I don't know what your PP looks like, and I wouldn't rate it anyways. Rylan says, I'm so zesty. That's cool, Rylan. Rascal says, I farted, okay. Squirrel says, shake that aw. I am not doing that. Short says, rate my profile picture. Oh, hey, it's me. I kind of like the pixelatedness of it for some reason. Vin says, your hand pose is majestic. Thank you. Te says, sorry, I'm busy doing something. 1 second, I'm busy. Okay, I'm back. Tess says, are you live? I am live. Muckus says, do you do any more physical activities? I do not. SX says, duh. Okay. Dr. Leaf says, favorite superhero? Other than Thor. Superman. Mario says, take a break. I will in 16 minutes. 16 minutes and 35 seconds. 1 second, please. 1 second, please. Kale says, should I donate 500? No, you should not. PP says, tricky duh. Okay. Thank you, Call It Twins, for the marshmallow hand thing. Nick says, if you can go back to the future. Go back to the future? What? L says, touched grass. Not right now. Spider says, water. Alright. Grim says, how do you feel about Batman? Batman, the second Batman in Nolan's, in the one with the Joker, that's probably my favorite superhero movie. Sorry, I'm distracted by something. Okay, you have my attention now. Kel says, rate my profile picture 1 to 10. 5. Thank you, All Wing, for the flow state, and thank you again to Jerry Plays for the eagle. Thank you, guys. It's Muggy says, I farted in my bath. Oh, that's gross. Grim says, I dig that, bro. Alright. Corp says, rate my profile picture. Oh, that's a cool pose. Thank you, Danny the Fanny, for the goat trophy, and Coral for the sunshine. Zingy says, have you ever watched any motorsports? No. Yee says, are you gay? No. Jason says, rate my profile picture. Looks like AI. Sale says, have you ever hit a trick shot on Call of Duty? I have never done that. No. 1 second, please. 1 second, please. Okay, I'm back. Rose says, you remember me? I remember your name. Thank you, Deco, for the 6-7. Luca says, I eat ketchup. Okay. Yellow says, rate my profile picture. I don't like it. I can't even read the text. BR says, I always see your streams. I live them. What are you saying, dude? Hudson says, I farted and I tickled. Okay. Aquar says, how are you? I'm good. Thank you for asking. Microwave says, rate my profile picture 1. Thank you again, Danny, for the goat trophy. He says, my eyes. Okay. 1 second. I'm doing something on my computer. I'm looking as to who to raid. Who do I raid? Okay, I think I know who. I'm gonna raid some lady. Logan says LeBron or Jordan. LeBron. Brendan says rate my profile picture. Oh, that's cool. Rose says how you been? I've been good. I'm gonna raid some middle-aged lady with glasses. This should be interesting. Anyways, thank you, Coco, for the clapping seal. Charm says rate my profile picture twin. Terrible. SX says moo. Alright. Shadow says ignore the haters. Keep working hard. Thank you. Dave M says ever get caught beating your meat? No comment. Net says rate my profile picture. I lost your chat message. Thank you again, Danny, for the goat trophy gift. Robbie says, should I go on Great Bear at Hershey Park? Yes. Dad says, what's your favorite Call of Duty? Call of Duty Black Ops 2. Yellow says, how are you doing? I'm doing fine. Boxing says, if you were an animal, what would you be? I think you'd be a capybara. A capybara, that's insulting. The most plain and uninteresting, stupid little animal. I don't like that. Thank you, Jaden, for the Uncle Alert, and Lotor for the Disco Ball Abomination. Dino says, I snort Smarties. Alright. Doctor says, I used to be a warrior like you until I took an arrow in the knee. You're lying. Jaylene says, I'm still happy that Spain won. Okay. Sophia says, remembers me? I do, actually. Jackson says, I'm a carpet. Okay. Oron says, can you do a backflip? I can't. Joe says, can you please shut up? No. Lorenu says, Dawn is like a mom after a long day at the end. I see that. 1 second, please. Okay. Thank you for your patience. Timeless says, why are you so monotone? Personality. Rear says, W keyboard. Thank you. Hill says, do you like chode? No, I don't. Guav says, ice cubes. Alright. Mario says, remember me? I remember your name. I'm Lifted says, can you shout out me? No. Leave the stream, I hate you. Lemon says, hi. Hello, Lemon. Jay says, have you ever heard of using the bathroom? Yes. John says, why you drink water like that? What was weird about it? Nick says, remember me? No. Cray says, standing is like walking, just with more steps. Yeah. By the way, in 11 minutes, we are going to be rating a streamer. Thank you, Jaden, for the Uncle Alert. Jason says, blah 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 blah. I don't know what you're saying, dude. Playboy says, can you raid me if I donate? No. Leave the stream. Don't donate. Blood says, favorite Doki? I don't know Doki. Mr. Dino says, are you okay? Yes. Sports says, hi Don. Hello, Sports. Thank you, Jaden, for the 6-7 gift, and Sand Guy Official for the flow state. You're the official Sand Guy? Larper says, you're a fake AI. No. I'm just says something. Alright. Joanne says, I'm addicted to masturbating. I hope you get over that. Thank you, Michael Jaramillo, for the Disco Ball Abomination. The first captain says, a house lizard has granted me with its presence. Shall I consider it my new pet? Yes, you should. And send me a picture. Evie says, hi, you cool? How are you? I am good. Carter says, I like touching sheet balls. Okay. Thank you, Michael, for the disco ball. Jason says, remember me, Don? Why are you typing that way? Jackson says, you're my favorite streamer. If you were in Streamer University, it would have been so much better. Oh, thank you. I am not says, please shout out. Leave the stream. Doctor says, I'd buy Don Benitez a beer or a non-alcoholic beverage. Thank you. And thank you, Mario, for the flow state. And Michael for his third abomination. Uber says, roll tide. Okay. I am not says, how dare you? How dare I what? Yusuf says, I love you, bro. Thank you. Mela says, what's your favorite movie? Mine is The Truman Show. Mine is Eyes Wide Shut. Flame says, emoji. Okay. Penguin says, are you having a good day? I am having a good day. Justin says, I farted and a poopy almost slipped out. Oh, that's gross. Biggie says, do you like kids? I do not. Ilya says, Stan new jeans. I'm not doing that. Rival says, how was that water? It was fine. 2 says, I love your streams. Thank you. Natalie says, what's your favorite movie? Stanley Kubrick's last film. Lever says, get a job. No. What? Bart says, do you snort coke? I don't. Wazzy says, I'm gonna kill myself. Don't do that. Boxing says, you are exactly like a capybara. That's insulting. RM says, the screen in the back told me to adopt myself and get government money. No way. How do you get that from that? Bertimus says, hi. Hello, Bertimus. Your girl says, hi. Hello, your girl. Mary says, gay YouTube shorts. Okay. Block says, I love ducks. What do you think of ducks? I think they're pretty goofy. Bella says, remember me? I do. Lorenu says, hand on the head and everything. Mom's had enough. Yeah, I'm reminiscent to what you're saying. Rival says, how do you snort coke? I don't snort coke. Your girl says, bro, what are you doing? I'm reading your messages. Hank says, can you sing the grape song? No. Hog says, frick frogs. Okay. Yusuf says, I subbed. Thank you. MJ says, hi. Hello, MJ. Doctor says, Don, I appreciate you for what you do, brother. Thank you. Delight says, do you have a favorite FNAF song? I don't know any FNAF songs. Here says, I'm going to high school. Any tips? Leave the stream. Spend less time on social media. Karaka says, hi. Hello, Karaka. Extreme says, I subbed. Okay, thank you. Junior says, I like Don's dong. Okay. Braden says, what's your favorite college football team? I don't know. Can you recommend me one? Dad says, are you excited for the new Marvel movies? A tiny bit. Will Z says, do you remember me? No. Showass says, my grandpa died. I'm sorry to hear that. Someone says, hi. Hello, person. Witch says, a blind girl has lost her pencil. Then her paper. Then her dog. What did she lose first? She first lost her... I don't know. Road says, have you seen Face IQ on YouTube? I haven't. Meme says, Indiana, who's yours? Okay. My favorite college football team is who's yours now. Mario says, I would send a gift, but I'm broke. That's fine. I have Michael's gifts. That works. Thank you again, Michael, for your disco. King says, how many inches? I keep that private. Boxing says, her site. What's that? Praz says, what happens after the timer ends? Read the text that's right there. Piper says, do you like cat's eye? I do not. Coco says, it was sight. She's blind. Okay. Yusuf says, why did the barber win the race? Why? By the way, it's, thank you, Azaria, for the Uncle Alert. Rating, we're going to be rating a streamer in 5 minutes. And what that means is that, we're going to go surprise a smaller streamer. Dr. Leaf says, I inherited being a doctor. No training. That's not possible. Hog says, I broke my wrist. Alright. Yusuf says, he took a shortcut. I don't know what you're saying. Liz says, hello, Don. How has Tuesday been treating you? Just fine. Thank you for asking. CEO says, is this the time live parasocial? The same live parasocial? As what? You're being so vague and stupid. Logan says, what is your favorite show? Breaking Bad. King Von says, please, Daddy, shout out. No, go screw yourself. Lorenu says, mockery is strong at the end. Okay. Sister says, God loves you. Thank you. Sophia says, are you going to drink water? After the stream ends. Crip says, you suck. Okay. Alright. Philly says, emoji. Alright. It's Abby says, femboys or tomboys? I'm gonna go with tomboys because I am straight. Vicky says, you're cool. Thank you for the compliments. I appreciate it. Carter says, is it a problem to be touching a bull's testicle? Yeah, that's pretty dangerous. I would not do that. 1 second, please. 1 second, please. 1 second, please. 1 second, please. It says, hi. New sub. Thank you. Teodo says, sex toy dildo. Alright. NF says, sphincter. What about the anus? Pandit says, rate my FPF. Okay. I'm not doing that. Pretend says, rate my profile picture 1 to 10. Oh, that's pretty cool. I'd give it a 5. That one guy super chats, good day from Australia, Big Don. P.S. Feet cheese is the best cheese. No, it isn't. I remember you saying that earlier, and I don't get it. That's pretty gross. Thank you, Tag, for the eagle. Little says, my crush said yes. Congrats. Sif says, write my profile picture. I drew it. 2. Sakana says, do you have aura? No. Logan says, do you like dirt bikes? No, I don't. Philly said, what's up, bro? Hello, Philly. By the way, we are going to be rating a streamer in 3 minutes. Don't spam. Ask them questions. Have a conversation. Follow their chat rules. Mila says, hi. Hello, Mila. Evie says, I'm subbing. Okay. Nick says, why do you suck? I don't know. Cheery says, I'm sad. Can you tell me something to cheer me up? Search up cute animals into Google. Bandit says, what's your favorite game? Minecraft. Mon says, supercalifragilisticexplodocious keyboard man. Thank you. Francisco says, is Trump ass? I don't talk about politics. PPS says, I'm sending you a picture of my dick. Please don't do that. I'm actually going to add another complimentary 2 more minutes to the timer. 3 minutes. I just want to get more people for the raid. Nick says, quick joke, go. I don't know jokes, I'm sorry. Chip says, hi, hello, Chips. Caden says, give me a reason to sub. No, leave the stream, in fact. AX says, you missed a super chat for $2. I did. James is great super chats. I shit myself. I'm sorry, James is great. You should totally go clean yourself instead of just typing in my chat. X says racial slur. Okay. Thank you, Jeremy, for the 10 Chuck E. Cheese coins. Max says, who did you want to win the World Cup? Spain. Boxing says, have you ever had a scone? I don't know what that is. YK says, is Jenny and Georgia tough? No, it's not. Carter says, is Bonnie Blue your girlfriend? No. Thank you again to Teg for the Eagle gift. Gilded says, listen to the song Up on the Roof by the Drifters. Not happening. Dominic says, what games do you play off stream? I was playing Assassin's Creed Odyssey a few days ago. Manaf says hello. Hello, Manaf. King Vaughn says, you screw yourself. No. You're just copying me. Thank you, Mario, for the flow state. Philly says, you goon to Bonnie Blue. Okay. That one guy super chats. Is it okay to put corn in my no-no square? In your anus? No, it's not. Jen says, are you abstracting? No. Phantom says, I'm a Jew. That's cool that you're a Jew, Phantom. Mario says, say Mario is cool, please. No. Elite says, Eerie 0. Alright. Jen says, are you abstracting? No. I hate circus. Brillin says, do you think Brillin is a boy or a girl's name? I mean, your profile picture kind of influences me, so I can't give an honest opinion. Noya says, I play bot it with my tip. Okay. Gabriel says, rate my profile picture too. USSR says, I'm gay. Speaking of USSR, I get those vibes from the song playing right now. I'm Just says, I'm a something. I'm sorry about that. Riley says, Sheldon Lee Cooper, you dog. Okay. Sophia says, are you having a good day? I am. Michael says, my penis. Alright. The Real says, hi, hello, The Real. VC says, Jesus loves you. Thank you. Harinder says, Cam. I don't know what you're saying. Thank you, Lucy, for this ramen bowl thingamajig. This egg-eating ramen. Thank you. Jeremy says, what's up? Hello, Jeremy. Carter says, you already said it that my channel, I made it myself. It took 3 days. I don't care. Ruck says, how old are you? I'm an adult. 402 says, are you Christian? No. Musty says, is King Vong the goat? He is not the goat. Thank you, SN1, for the stupid little cat DJing. Thank you. Lorenu says, have you seen Resident Alien? I have not. Pistachio says, burger or hot dog? Burgers. Thank you, Jeremy, for the sunshine. Walker says, Jesus is king. Okay. Alright. Okay. Scotty says, what should I eat? You should eat a cheeseburger. Ice Cube says, how do you eat mangoes? Like any other fruit, just like an apple. Art says, cats or dogs? Dogs. Thank you again to Jeremy for the sunshine and SN1 for the DJ and cat. The Real says, Heil Hitler, which I condemn. Michael says, poop on me. I'm not doing that. T3 says, W stream, thank you. Leduki says, I goon to LeBron. Okay. Gum says, why are you acting so serious? Because that's the way my personality is. Jeremy says, how do you shit on a hippo? It shouldn't be hard, other than figuring out a way to get on top of it. Phantom says, do you drink hot dog flavor water? I do not. Moon says, I torture my mortal enemies. Okay. Moa says, I bought 24 mango juice bottles. Alright. By the way, we are going to be raiding a streamer in a minute. We are going to surprise a small streamer. Lemon says, hi. Hello. Space says, yo. Hello, Space. Aiden says, what's your favorite soccer team from soccer? That would be Spain's team. Fossil says, you love God. I do not. Jay says, rate my profile picture. Oh, hey, it's me, but AI-ified into anime. That's pretty cute. Brendan says, I was beating my meat in the shower. Oh, that's... Okay, I don't need to know that. The King says, hi. Hello, The King. Moonlight says, have you ever been embarrassed in public? Not on a large scale. Mario says, who do you want to win the World Cup 2027? I am going to go with Spain again. I've been Spain this time, Spain next time. Dr. Leave says, you rolled on, thank you. Snow says, who you do not love God? I don't think he exists. T3 says some of these comments are messed up. Okay. Space says, yo, hello, Space. Berlin says, do you like softball? I do. Alright, we're going to be raiding a streamer. In just a second, there's going to be a button at the bottom of the screen. Click that button to join the raid. We are going to surprise a small streamer. Click the button to go to the small streamer. If you don't see the button, there's a channel post right now which you can go to. Alright, see you in the raid, guys. See ya.